Good morning. It's Tuesday, the 27th of February, 2024, and Benjamin needs to stop choosing colors or choosing his outfit that matches my choice of colors.
I woke up, did mine. Yeah. You are the one copying me here. I mean, how do we keep doing this? My tie, my shirt. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
but just a quick test. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
So what you just said, Tuesday, the 27th of February. How do you say that in French?
Ooh, tell me.
Mardi le 27 de février 2024.
Okay. Thank you very much for that.
I'm just saying, come to me for French lessons and Pino Kofio. Now,
no problem. You two come to me for German lessons. So about a year ago, you know that the president delivered the State of Nations address, and a year down the line, it's time again for us to do. And that's a bigger story we have for you this morning. But in a build-up to that, of course, we'll serve you the news and then the news review. Today, financial analyst Dr. Wisdom Kofi Dogbe will be our guest.
Of course, after that, we'll serve you a good dose of sports as well, and then we'll get into the big stories. Already, we've started talking about it. The final State of the Nation address. What are you expecting from Mr. President? Stay with us. We'll bring you details of that.
Well, also on the show, we've got a host of fine brains joining us. We are joined by Dr. Ayamga and a host of others who will be joining the conversation to discuss the SONA 2024. Dr. Ayamga is a development economist and senior lecturer at the University for Development Studies. We also have Professor Lord Mensah, who's associate professor of finance at the University of Ghana Business School. And then Peter Anti, executive director of the Institute for Education Studies. Who else do we have coming, Benjamin?
Also, Charles Nyaba is Executive Director, Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. And of course, we'll also be speaking to some citizens on what their expectations are.
Yes.
But you can tell from the lineup, we're going to look at education, agriculture, the economy, everything in between.
No.
That's what it's going to be.
It's a 360 coverage. We've got you sorted. Both Citizens Microphone is both here in Accra and in Kumasi. So we have diverse opinions, all on the SONA. We're ready for you. But before we get into the SONA, more than 1,000 childhood cancer cases have been recorded in Ghana over the last decade. There seems to be a rise in cases, and the cost of treatment is high. Many patients cannot afford it. We'll delve into this and how some organizations are putting up a First in Africa treatment center here in Ghana to ease the plight of patients.
Well, also coming up on the show, we're telling you about the right to information. The submission of annual reports by public institutions is a mandatory activity to be performed by all public institutions. The RTI law, Act 989, defines a public institution as, quote, includes a private institution or a private organization that receives public resources or provides a public function. This is in accordance with Section 77 of the Right to Information Act. But the curious part is that when institutions like ours sometimes try to get that self-same information, then it becomes a bloody affair. But we'll be hosting the RTI Commission on the AM show today as we delve into the nitty-gritty of their work.
And we also host the Old Achimotan Association, which has a legacy project and asset fund event this weekend. All that later on in the show, and then we'll come to you to have your say.
My favorite part.
Yeah.
Get to interact with ordinary Kofis, Amas, James, Joneses.
I like to say that the show is for them and about them. So it's only right that we give them the platform.
I always say Ubuntu. We are because
they are. That's how we welcome you to the show. This is the AM show on JoyNews. Stick with us from now till 10 a.m. This is the AM News. Let's begin with details. Now, the Graduate Unemployed Nurses and Midwives Association is worried that more than 70,000 of its members are still unemployed, despite successfully passing their licensing exams. Leaders of the group at a news conference in Accra said the situation is putting them on edge. They want government to remedy the situation. Rejoice Semefakpesu has more in the following report.
The latest labor statistics report by the Ghana Statistical Service reveals that over 1.8 million Ghanaians are unemployed, marking a 14.7% rate in the third quarter of 2023. Nearly 48% of the unemployed have higher education, and youth unemployment aged 15 to 35 constitutes constitutes over 3/4 of the total. The Graduate Unemployed Nurse and Midwives Association is among numerous graduate groups in this 1.8 million people. The group's PRO, Sarah Mensah, asserts they have information about certain ghost workers from the Ministry of Health and Finance accepting at least 5,000 Ghana cedis for special postings for their colleagues.
I am coming to take care of you when you are not well. Then you come to see me on the street making noise because I don't have employment. The next time you come to the ward and you see me, will you have that confidence that this nurse is capable of taking care of you? Because I saw this nurse on the street. 2 to 3 years is relatively a long time for someone to complete school without employment. We have some of our colleagues, our classmates, that we have sat with them in the same exam hall to take an exam, working in the ward, and we are at home. When you ask a question, they tell you, with these special postings, from who? We want to know that answer. Who is the official, or who are the officials giving these people the opportunity, leaving others behind? Initially, we had 5,000, 6,000, 8,000, which some people paid. If I had that money, probably I would have paid too. But on a second thought, I think we are allowing ourselves, the graduate unemployed nurses, we are allowing ourselves to be forced or compelled to fall victim into this condition. So we are here to register this displeasure to the government, Ministry of Health and Ministry of Finance. We don't know who is behind these ghost officials. We are pleading with them to look into it, find the people responsible for this act, fish them out, and restore the system to normal, whereas nurses and midwives will graduate from their training and come and get their employment.
The Northern Region, Upper East and Ashanti regional chapters of the association are set to embark on a peaceful demonstration on the 1st of March to register this displeasure.
So the demonstration, it is not because we want to use violence. It is not because we want to make noise. We actually didn't plan to do this, but we have done the maximum follow-ups. In all the follow-ups, we've not had the opportunity to meet even a single minister of these agencies, Minister of Health, Minister. We've never had the opportunity to meet with them. We want to demonstrate to the ministries, which is Ministry of Health and Ministry of Finance. Currently, we have Tamale, Northern Region, having their demonstrations, Ashanti Region and Upper West. They are going to have their demonstrations on the 1st of March. Unfortunately for Greater Accra Region, because of the upcoming Independence Day, we have come into an agreement with the police that we will do our demonstration after the Independence Day. Our demonstration is to get to the ministries in our larger numbers to register this displeasure with the ministers. They should give us the opportunity to hear from the minister that this is the reason why we are not giving you employment.
The association emphasized that its members are seeking equal opportunities to apply the knowledge acquired in the classroom, advocating for a fair chance to contribute their skills and training in professional settings.
Now, family of a Ghanaian immigrant ganged in Toronto, Canada, is seeking justice for their relative who traveled to the country in November 2023 to seek greener pastures. 40-year-old Addo was killed in by an unknown assailant in North York, Toronto last week, in what the Canadian police describes as an indiscriminate attack. The police are on a manhunt for the predator. Bright Kweku visited the family house in Kwanwoma in the Ashanti region and has filed this report.
Friends console the wife of the deceased, who has cried for days after hearing the news of her husband's passing. Grief fills the hearts of the family of Addo Boakye, who was shot dead by an unknown attacker in Toronto, Canada. On Saturday, February 17, 2024, 40-year-old Addo Boakye was killed in a random shooting incident in North York in the northwest of Toronto. According to the Canadian police, Addo Boakye was shot indiscriminately close to the North Toronto bus stop while going about his day innocently. He was shot 3 times, twice in the stomach, and was rushed to the hospital where he later died. Brother-in-law of the deceased, Francis Kumi, recounts his last moments with him on the phone before his passing. He called me some few hours before his demise that he had sent money to his wife but couldn't receive it, so he was going back to receive it. It was not until Monday that I heard of his demise at 5:30 a.m. Addo Boakye traveled to Canada in November last year to seek a promising future and support his family of 4. His death comes barely 4 months after leaving the shores of Ghana to Canada. Dr. Boakye is a sister of the deceased.
He reached out 3 days after securing a job opportunity. He promised to take care of the family, but unfortunately he couldn't fulfill his promise.
3 days of
the family is seeking justice for their relative.
I'm wishing for is the person responsible gets apprehended, and that if there were any accomplices, they are also uncovered.
On Saturday, the Ghanaian Canadian Association of Ontario held a vigil to honor a colleague they described as hardworking. Meanwhile, the police are on a manhunt for the perpetrator, believed to be in the ages of 18 and 25.
Addo Boakye had left Ghana to see greener pastures in Canada. He was hoping to come back to change the fortunes of the family, but now they are left in sorrow and pain. The family are yet to come to terms with the demise of Addo Boakye. From here in Kwawoma, in the Ashanti region, my name is Emmanuel Bright Quick.
In other stories, the governing New Patriotic Party's parliamentary candidate for Tano North, Dr. Gideon Boakye, has described the December polls as a destiny-changing exercise for Ghanaians. Speaking at a Thanksgiving service and Unity Party at Boma, Dr. Boakye said it would only take working together with a united front for the NPP to break the 8 and achieve the dreams of the people. Precious Semovo has more.
The Thanksgiving service for the newly elected Tano North NPP parliamentary candidate in the Ahafo region, Dr. Gideon Boakye, was well attended by top party executives, including ministers of state and MPs at the Boma Methodist Church. At a Unity Party later in the day, Dr. Boakye, the spokesperson of the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, who recently defeated the incumbent MP, Dr. Frida Prempeh, in the constituency primaries of the also expressed his heartfelt gratitude for the support and honor done him by the delegate. He, however, said more work is required to bring all hands on deck towards another electoral victory to help break the 8 and change the destiny of the people and the constituency.
This is more or less a Thanksgiving lunch or Thanksgiving get together. We've christened the Unity Party because we believe that after the competition we need to cooperate for the greater task ahead of us. And so we invited people from different sides during the elections, myself, and those who supported the incumbent MP who lost the primaries. Even her, I invited her. The key message we want to send across to the people in the constituency is that yes, Gideon Bwako has won the primaries, but the main election is not going to be a Gideon Bwako election alone. It's an election for all of us. It's an election for the destiny of the constituency and the people in the constituency. And therefore, we need every single member of the constituency to join hands with us in this particular pursuit. I believe that looking at the Tano North constituency and historically being a stronghold of the NPP, if we all come together, we'll be able to garner more votes for Vice President Dr. Baumia and myself, so that the breaking the eight that we talk about can be a reality. So this is more of a unity party, but we are doing this to bring all of us together.
The regional minister, George Boache, expressed confidence in holding on to the Tano North seat even as they begin reconciliation in the region after the primaries.
We are starting our reconciliation process on Friday. We are coming to Tano North on Tuesday to meet all the aspirants and all their supporters and then speak to them, bring them together so that we can confront the elections ahead of us with a united force. The sense of retaining the seat in Tano South, there's no doubt about that. We will retain it. But me, I want numbers. That is why I'm emphasizing on unity. I don't want anybody to go out of it. We should all come together and then fight together.
Precious Semevo, JoyNews, Boma.
Municipal Director of Education in Kushegu has bemoaned the lack of furniture in schools in the area. Ahmed Tijani Hassan says some schools have just 10 desks to serve 50 students. He spoke during a visit to the area to monitor the desk situation in some schools in the Kushegu municipality.
With support from the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, in partnership with Star Ghana Foundation, is implementing the SEF3 project to help advocate for quality education for the Ghanaian child. CSOs and the media visited some selected schools to have first-hand information on the challenges these schools face and to advocate for increasing the investment on basic education, especially provision of dual desks. The Municipal Director of Education, Ahmed Tijani Hassan, described the furniture situation in the municipality as terrible.
In fact, it is very, very bad situation when we are talking about furniture situation in Kushegu. Some schools, if you go, they have about 10 desks in a school, meanwhile they have population of 30 students or 50 people in the class. But with 10, some you go in the classroom, they are virtually none. You see students or people sitting on the ground writing. So the situation is bad. Even when they brought 180 from the GET fund, we distributed to all schools. Some are even getting 2. Just we are trying to give furniture or the desks to all schools, so that at least some will get, even if it is 2. If they are 2, it's better than none. So they receive 2 desks. Some even came crying that 10 was not enough for them, but we can't do anything.
The health teacher of the Kushegu MA Junior High School, Zakaria Hafiz, said almost half of the school has no furniture.
If I may not be wrong, out of the 400 plus, I can say that 200 are without desk. So almost half. So you see how bad the situation is. But initially it was worse than that until we received the first help from the GET fund through the municipal assembly. So I'm using this medium again to appeal to those who can help, those who matter a lot in the society, NGOs, philanthropists, and even government of Ghana to do something about our situation.
A Form 3 student of the school said they sit 3 on a desk and that affects their studies.
When I came to the school, Form 2, we were sitting 3-3. The challenges were, if we sit 3-3, we don't have the concentration. Second one, if we are sitting 3-3, we pass indecisions to each other. If we sit 3-3, sometimes if the teacher teaches us, one person has to go to the back or sleep on the floor, and this makes us uncomfortable. I wish we should have more desks applying to us.
Now, a non-governmental organization, Pencils of Promise, has constructed the 200th classroom block in Bihwegbe in its 11 years of operation in Ghana. The NGO is working to improve educational infrastructure, sanitation, and other aspects of academic excellence in the Volta, Eastern, and Oti regions in Ghana.
The milestone was climaxed with the commissioning of a 3-unit classroom block constructed for the Bihwegbe EP Basic School in the Hohwe municipality. It also counts as the 600th classroom block constructed by Pencils of Promise worldwide. The classroom block would house the kindergarten department, which previously occupied a dilapidated wooden structure.
Formerly, my students used to study in that old structure. When the sun is shining like this, it's very, very warm, and then the students are very uncomfortable. And then when it's about to rain, you have to close down, because at the time when it rains, the rain will disturb.
Speaking at the ceremony, the country director of Pencils of Promise, Freeman Goba, said his outfit is enthused about the contributions it had made in the education sector over the years.
We impacted so many lives, 200 communities in Ghana, different districts, 3 regions, and beyond building this classroom, we've trained over 2,000 teachers. Currently, we are impacting over 70,000 children that are in the classroom that we have built. And we want to thank our donors for standing with us throughout this period and asking them that they should continue to believe in us as an organization until every child in every corner of this country, Ghana, in Guatemala, in Laos, has access to quality education. We are ready to work with Ghana government. We are ready to work with the District Assembly, members of Parliament. Let them come on board. Let's work together. Let's bring our resources together to make the needed impact in our communities.
The Hohwe Municipal Chief Executive, Noble Awumi, lauded Pencils of Promise on their commitment to improving infrastructure in the education sector, promising the Assembly's continuous support.
To increase access as well as enhance quality of education in contemporary times demands huge investments. Just putting up a mere infrastructure is not enough, and I'm therefore glad that Pencils of Promise is not oblivious of this fact, for which other sub-programs have been designed to support the school to deliver the type of education we all desire. In connection with the above, the Hohwe Municipal Assembly will ensure that it continues to implement its planned programs and activities which cover schools in Bihwegbe in order to increase access and improve quality.
The Bihwegbe Divisional Chief, Togbe Ken XII, appreciated the contributions of Pencils of Promise to enhancing human resources of his community through provision of the classroom block. Fred Kwame Asari, JoyNews, Bihwegbe.
Right, so that's how we wrap up for AM News on the AM show. Up next is the news review with Benjamin Akakbo. He's joined by financial analyst Dr. Wisdom Kofi Dogbe for that segment. Please stay with us.
Well, thank you for staying with us, and we continue from here with the news review. But right before we get into the papers, right before we cut incisively into them, helping us bring you the segment every weekday morning, End Point Homeopathic Clinic. They deal in, health matters. Your health is your wealth. And in these two areas, they are offering you free screening. I'll tell you what, no segregation. If you're a man, they're offering you prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free. I'm curious, when was the last time you checked your prostate as a man? Especially if you are 40 or above. If you're not checking it, you could be sitting on a ticking time bomb. If you're a woman and fertility, yes, you are thinking of giving birth, or you've given birth, but you still want to procreate and you are not paying attention to what's happening as far as your fertility is concerned. Noting, for example, that a majority of women actually have some developments when it comes to fibroids, but it's not everyone who has that progression where it gets to the point where you may require surgery or something of the sort. But the question is, why sit and wait and not know until disaster strikes, right? That's why I'm proffering for you Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, because they'll grant you these screenings for free. Locate them here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi Kronoma here behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takrade Anaji Estate, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa and Esiamanzama. Their call lines are 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review, and we're hosting one more time from Amanone, from Ablochi, from Ebrochire, from very far away, but he makes the time to join us. What time is it where you are? I know by that I'm exposing you in a way, but what time is it?
Ben, good morning. It is 1:34 over here.
1:34 a.m.
Yes.
You see what some of our guests go through just to help us bring you the filler. So I am applauding you this morning. Dr. Dugbe, thank you for making the time to join the conversation. All right.
Modern country, Ben.
Right. So I don't know what you're going to be talking about, but I'll run these two issues by you. Somewhere in Toronto, in Canada, we've lost a Ghanaian who left the shores of Ghana just late last year. And he was seeking greener pastures. His story breaks my heart because this was someone for whom the system could not give what he wanted. He went seeking greener pastures. Unfortunately, this is what happened. Of course, there are thousands, tens of thousands of Ghanaians out there who don't meet this fate. But it tells you about a broken system where most people would prefer the hazards, the risks over staying here. And unfortunately, in this instance, this happened. My condolences to his family. The second issue, the State of the Nation address, the last for President Akufo. What are your expectations? I'm not holding my breath. I'm not waiting with bated breath. That's for sure. But I'll leave it to you. If you'd like to reflect on any of that, or if you have something critical you'd like to talk about, you can put all of that together in about 2.5, 3 minutes, and then we proceed.
And thank you so much for having me again. I'll take the side of Sweetie, your co-host, that you're the one trying to copy her as far as the colors are concerned, not the other way around, okay?
The way you've left me in that, just dumped me by the roadside.
I read a devastating story of how this young Ghanaian left Ghana in search of greener pastures in Canada, but unfortunately met his tragic death. It is a tough news for all, especially for the family, and I hope that the Canadian security agencies will work to bring the killers to book. My thoughts and prayers go to the family and the friends of our late brother. You know, I can understand the pain a little bit because at some point in my life, I also had to leave the shores of Ghana in search of opportunities that were not available to me in Ghana at the time. Now, fast forward a couple of years down the road, and this phenomenon is alive more than ever, and more people leave Ghana for greener pastures these days. You know, I have friends who lived in Ghana and would not leave the nation to go abroad, no matter what. But for the last 6-7 years, some of these friends have relocated and living overseas as we speak. So you ask yourself, what would it take for our nation to implement solid economic policies that will solve the unemployment menace and other economic challenges to retain our young talents in the country? You know, by providing them with fair economic opportunity and prevent the brain drain so that they don't have to leave the country for greener pastures. Unfortunately, this brother who was killed in Canada became a victim of the worst risk that immigrants face all of the time on a day-to-day basis. We have many of our youth that choose to emigrate using very dangerous routes, such as going through Libya, right? And then crossing very, very dangerous seas or traversing harsh terrains. A handful of them drowned and die all the time without making it to their final destinations. Some of these migrating Ghanaians also become victims of human traffickers and smugglers who exploit them for their vulnerabilities. Some are even killed by these notorious criminals, and some just die on the way because of lack of proper care or extreme conditions. You know, as if that is not enough, for those of them who make it to their destination safely, the battle continues. Sometimes they don't have proper documentation or legal status, so they are often exploited. And what is their legal recourse? They don't want to be caught by the immigration guys, so they hardly report a crime against them. Now, worst of all is their inability to come home for important family functions, including the demise of very loved ones. A friend of mine lost a sibling in Ghana, and she couldn't come to Ghana to attend the funeral because she had no way to come back if she then left the country. All that I'm saying is that it is time to seriously start addressing the root cause of immigration and also address these government challenges or problems that we have with unemployment. Government should partner with the private sector, to solve the unemployment crisis, especially among the youth. Ghana is for all of us, and we must take steps, to make it work for all of us.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that all-important matter. Let's now get into the papers and find out what they have to share with us this morning. The Daily Graphic, I have the Daily Graphic, the Ghanaian Times, the New Finder, Daily Guide, Economy Times. I'll be focusing on those newspapers. But here goes. President presents SONA today, and I'd like to find out from you, what is your state of the nation? What is your state of the nation? The Americans will say State of the Union. What is your state of the nation? Government to set up FinTech Innovation Fund, that's according to Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Review new taxes, GPCC urges government. And Jospon Group to build waste treatment plants in Lagos. Teacher unions make proposals for parties' manifestos. On the back page, Tamale Sagnarigu suffer acute water shortage, and that is a major story in that newspaper. We'll be getting into the details so you can get to know what exactly is happening in respect of them. So let's start from that story. Tamale Sagnarigu suffer acute water shortage. In recent times, we've spoken about students having to use gallons and all of that. I'm talking about especially senior high students just to get water for basic purposes. So many communities in the Tamale metropolis and Sagnarigu municipality in the northern region have been hit with acute water shortages for some time now as a result of inadequate supply by the Ghana Water Company Limited. Now, the recurrent situation has partly been attributed to increasing activities of sand mining at the water treatment plant at Dalun, coupled with a growing population of the twin cities, which have resulted in dwindling water supply to the affected areas. The dire situation has compelled some of the people to compete with animals for untreated water from nearby dams and dugouts. Hundreds of people are seen daily with yellow gallons on motorbikes, tricycles, and bicycles searching for water from streams and dams. Again, water tankers have become difficult as drivers have to stay in long queues for many hours at water supply points. Now, apart from health implications and the financial burden to residents, the prevailing situation has also compelled some workers and school children to report late to work and school. And here's how I'll end. What toll this is taking on the people in terms of their pocket. A drum of untreated water is sold at 5 Ghana cedis by private water tankers. That is I believe that's the bit. Now, while a yellow gallon of borehole water is sold at 3 Ghana cedis, borehole water. A full water tanker ranges from 300 cedis to 350 cedis, depending on the number of gallons the water tanker contains. Yeah. When people have to compete with animals for resources, then you know, asemaba. Over to you, Doc.
That is a very unfortunate situation. I can't believe that some of these things are still happening. Many years ago, when some of us went to Lagos, we had water issues, in the halls. Water wasn't flowing.
Which hall were you in?
Commonwealth.
Did you know I was an old vandal too?
I had no idea.
V-mate.
V-mate.
You should actually go sharp. You're going rusty. You should actually go sharp.
You know what I'm saying? There were times that we didn't have water, right? You had to go get water from different locations. Yeah. All of that affects your ability to excel academically. Some of these things that leaders need to take it much more seriously in our policies and also allocation of resources. We need to prioritize these things for the nation, right? If you are very serious and you look at students as the future of the nation, you would implement policies that take care of their needs, especially something as basic as water, right? Students need that to be able to do meaningful academic studies. And the worst of all, if students have to now compete with animals over water, that tells you, Ben, even that water alone, right? How safe is that? Animals are drinking from it. How safe is that? We need to be very serious as a nation and address some of these things with some level of emergency.
Indeed, we ought to do that. Now, review new taxes, GPCC urges government. The Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council has called on the government to take a second look at the introduction of new taxes and explore alternative revenue mobilization avenues. Now, the ecumenical body suggested efforts to widen the direct tax net and reduce government's expenditure to create fiscal space and ultimately ease the economic burden on Ghanaians. Now, in a communique issued at the end of its conference of heads of churches and organizations, that is CHOCO, last Friday, the GPCC said policy measures should be directed at improving the productive sector of the economy as a means of promoting economic growth, especially in the private sector, to create more employment avenues for the teeming unemployed youth. Speaking of which, recently, we had on Sunday on The Probe, I had a representative of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce, president of the Tema branch, joining the studio, and Mr. Kabute. And it was sad. You realize that with a cocktail of inhibitive factors, taxes, if you're borrowing, the lending rate or interest rate, you're looking at other levies and other, things being slapped on products. If you're bringing in raw materials, the taxes on them, the exchange rate, how do you expect these people to break even, to talk of even go ahead and employ other people? If you've seen the latest figures from the Ghana Statistical Service, you would see that we're on the ascendancy when it comes to unemployment and underemployment. And it's such a huge issue. Now, the GPCC has waded into the conversation. Any quick reflections on that?
Ben, the last time I came through here, I mentioned that some of these taxes are ill-conceived, and not much has gone into the strategy to determine the overall impact on Ghanaians. I was glad to hear that VAT on electricity or emissions, I think one of those was suspended, right? And now I'm glad
that's, I believe, the 15% VAT on electricity.
Right. And now I'm even glad that the clergy is adding their voices, right? They're adding their voices to call on government to review these new taxes and explore alternative revenue mobilization avenues. And when I was discussing the new finance minister's push for GRA to increase their revenue mobilization efforts, I mentioned that we need to look at better ways of raising revenue for the government without raising taxes or introducing new taxes. We can improve on tax compliance, where everyone gets to pay their fair share, and giving businesses incentives for voluntary tax compliance. We don't necessarily need new taxes if we expand the tax base to bring in those businesses who are not paying their due share. Bring them into the tax net. But the most important way, right, to improve revenue mobilization without introducing new taxes is to invest in the economy, right, economic development. When the economy expands, businesses will do well. Unemployment will reduce. And the more production there is, the higher revenues that there will be to the state. The government gets more in revenue. So we need to move from the mindset of taxation to production. Let's invest in policies that strengthen the investment climate, that promotes innovation and entrepreneurship. That is what we need to do to stimulate economic activity, to generate more revenue without necessarily, introducing new taxes. But Ghana is rich with a lot of natural resources. Let's promote policies that enable optimal utilization of these natural resources to drive economic growth and raise more revenue for the nation through royalties. And we will not need to raise taxes or even introduce new taxes. So I agree with the clergy that we should avoid over-dependence on one source of revenue for the state, which is taxation, and diversify our revenue sources through more production.
All right. Let's quickly get into some other stories then, pages 2 and 13, and then we shall move from there. Government to set up FinTech Innovation Fund, Dr. Bawumia says so. Now, the government is to set up a FinTech Innovation Fund to support startups to drive Ghana's digital revolution. Of course, when you hear Dr. Bawumia, there's always some digital somewhere. Now, the initiative is to ensure that the country leverages on the power of technology to improve productivity and connectivity to empower individuals through fintech startups, as well as small and medium-scale businesses to increase innovation and efficiency in the operations of these institutions. There was also the Vice President announced this in Accra yesterday at the official press launch of the maiden 3I Africa Summit. He encouraged all stakeholders in the fintech and digital industry to join forces in improving the legislative and regulatory environment in order to enhance the payments ecosystem and position Ghana on the path of sustained financial inclusion. And there's also teacher unions make proposals for parties' manifestos. Nowadays, I've heard from Guta, they want to feed in and say, hey, if you're going to shape policies, this time we want to be on board. We want to have one-on-one with you, engage all of you, the presidential candidates, to ensure that our purpose will also be served, whoever comes to power. Well, the teachers are doing same. Pre-tertiary teacher unions in the country yesterday launched a document containing their demands for incorporation in the manifestos of political parties. The unions are the Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAT, the National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, and the Coalition of Concerned Teachers, that is the CCT Ghana. It's a 13-page document. I'll add this final story, get your reaction, and then we can go from there. I can't leave out the SONA. President Akufo Addo will present a message on the state of the nation to Parliament today, in which he is expected to enumerate some achievements over the last 12 months and spell out the roadmap for a stronger economy under an IMF-backed economic stabilization program. The exercise, which has become known as the State of the Nation Address, will be the president's penultimate address ahead of his scheduled departure from office on January 7, 2025, after a two-term tenure that started on January 7, 2017. This actually reminds me of when former President Mahama was leaving. He delivered his last one right before leaving. So you get to do this, the last in this year, and then right before you bow out. It's always interesting how this pans out. But any reflections on any of these stories?
Yeah, Ben, on the State of the Nation address, with everything going on in the nation as of now, the high unemployment, rising inflation, high interest rate at the national debt level and so on, I think it's very likely that some Ghanaians may not necessarily trust the words of the president, regardless of what he says in the State of the Nation address. So here's my thought about how Ghanaians may react to the president's address to the nation.
No, before you get to Ghanaians, or if you like, you can do Ghanaians, but I'd like to find out how you would react and what your expectations would be, if any.
Of course, I'll get to that, but let me quickly talk about my expectations from the whole nation's address that the president will give. I do believe that some Ghanaians will express anger and frustration, especially those who had high hopes and expectations of the president when he first came to office. Now, arguably, the policies of this administration haven't made the lives of some Ghanaians better. So I suspect that some section of Ghanaians will express frustration. And I mean, those who believe that the president and his administration's policies have negatively impacted their lives or the country as a whole. And of course, some may be disappointed, regardless of how much hope the president tries to project in his address. At this stage, the people need to see real action that translates into lessening their economic burden.
Right.
So this is not a time for big drama or big English. A lot of Ghanaians are taught to believe that the president and his administrations they failed to deliver on their campaign promises, and they have not addressed key issues in the country. So I have my doubts, right? If the president's address, this is my thought. I get to your point, right? Your question is, my doubt is if the president's address will alleviate the frustration with the lack of progress or real positive economic and social changes during the president's term. That is the doubt that I have. And I also think that many folks will be skeptical and they will receive the president's message with some level of distrust. Many have hopes. You know, they had hopes that were lost in the government and its ability to address issues that concern them the most. So it's going to be very interesting how people would receive this message, not exactly how I believe the president may want it. Now, citizens may become more skeptical, right, of future promises or policy proposal if they believe that in the last address, the president made promises and all of that were not met. Now, we have seen ministers with abysmal performance reassigned to other areas of government instead of letting them go, right? That is not necessarily the right move. So regardless of what the president says in his address, I expect that many Ghanaians would like to see or hear about some level of accountability and transparency. I would suspect that for those who tune in to listen, the folks who still care, they would expect the president to take some responsibility for the policy failures and some assurance from the president that his government will be accountable.
Right.
Now, on the other hand, quickly, you will see an abundance of party loyalists and foot soldiers, you know, supporting and hailing the president's address to the nation, regardless of what he says. You know, these folks would dismiss any disapproval of the president, and they will go that extra mile to tout perceived achievements, even if these achievements are not easily traceable. The baseline is this, Ben. Regardless of the president's address for the nation, government should focus on course correcting and championing ideas and policies that will reduce the economic burden on Ghanaians so that people can become more engaged again and have trust in their government.
You know, after such a submission, as we usually say here, I have nothing more to add. I think you've nailed that submission. A few comments coming through. Aziz Donla in Wa says, as citizens, we don't expect anything tangible from this government because the economy is down to its knees. Inflation is 23%, the exchange rate 12 to $1. Well, it's actually way higher. Unemployment rate 14%. Honestly, this government has failed woefully. We don't actually need any... I can't read the rest of what you write. But Dove Maxwell says the US dollar is equal to 13 Ghana cedis. It's hovering around that, 12.9 something. Street value, but the central bank gives something around 12.4, 12.39, 12.4. And he adds, Papa mate, bus stop. Anyway. On the international front, page 5, ECOWAS lifts sanctions against Guinea and Mali. Of course, we had already heard about the other stance with Niger. Algeria inaugurates Africa's largest mosque. Now, Algeria inaugurated a gigantic mosque on its Mediterranean coastline yesterday after years of political upheaval transformed the project from a symbol of state-sponsored strength and religiosity to one of delays and cost overruns. Built by a Chinese construction firm throughout the 2010s, the Great Mosque of Algiers features the world's tallest minaret, you know, where they go and where the muezzin calls to the faithful, measuring 869 feet, 265 meters, that is. And the project's official cost was, guess what? A mouth-watering $898 million. You should check out this project. It is huge. And it's interesting. We Catholics, Christians, who often talk about cathedrals. For them, this is it. WTO Ministerial Conference kicks off. Palestinian PM resigns over post-war Gaza plans. All of those stories in there. If you have any reactions, quickly, I'll take them. If not, we go to the rest of the papers.
Yeah, man, on the sanctions of Niger, right? I read that sanctions were lifted, of course, yeah, and I just heard it from you as well. And I also read that President Tinubu made a statement calling for the lifting of the economic sanctions on Niger, Guinea, Mali, and Burkina Faso.
Right.
I think 3 of these nations said that they were leaving ECOWAS.
Yeah.
President Tinubu's reasoning, right? His reasoning for calling for suspension of sanctions is that the sanctions have largely been ineffective and have proven to be a hindrance and not a solution to the political impasse in these countries. I would say that I understand that reasoning that he gave, and I'm not for placing sanctions that don't make sense. But I'm concerned about the precedent that this will set for other would-be plotters, right? Plotters. What then will be the sanction for the states, right? And leaders that overthrow democratically elected leaders to replace them with military or junta leadership in the sub-region? How would ECOWAS deter such military actions and prevent coup in the sub-region? What is the right response, Ben, that ECOWAS must give in such eventualities? I am a believer of the mandate of ECOWAS, right? And while I know that there are opportunities for improvement, I am of the view that ECOWAS should be impartial when administering its decisions concerning member states to promote regional and economic integration among these member states. I think, though, that the removal of these sanctions should at least address some of the concerns that Niger and the other countries had, for which they decided to leave the organization. I think it's a rather better strategy in the spirit of Pan-Africanism for these countries who announced that they were leaving. I think it's better for them to stay and work to improve the organization. Now, with the lifting of these sanctions, Niger and these other countries would have their economic prospects significantly improved with the suspension of these economic sanctions. Other nations and investors, hopefully, may have favorable impression about these countries for investment purposes. And these West African nations will also have more access to the African and other international markets again. So I expect that the lifting of the sanctions will enable Niger to resume normal trade relations and allow for increased investment and access to more or potential global markets. With the crisis in Niger, I am assuming that the sanctions might have impeded the smooth flow of aid into the country. And so now humanitarian aid and assistance can easily flow into the country. Hopefully, Niger also capitalizes on this to repair diplomatic relations with the international community and reintegrate into the West African group and other international communities, Ben.
All right, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on that as well. Now, the Ghanaian Times newspaper, Jospom breaks into Africa, signs landmark deal to build waste management plants in Lagos State, Nigeria, commit to free SHS or TVET program review and manifestos, NAT and 2 other teacher unions demand from political parties. Veep tasks fintech firms to develop an innovative payment solution for Africa. We've already seen that story in the Daily Graphic. Atachia urges calm over SML or GRA revenue assurance contract. Yesterday, there was even talk from his end about hounding local businesses. On the back page, use AG to promote sports and local tourism. GBA to present 8 boxes for trials in Italy and 20 Black Princesses camp in Cape Coast. All right. So let's start from page 4, and then we'll do page 9 as well. Chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on Mines and Energy, Samuel Atachia, has urged the public to remain calm pending the outcome of the KPMG report and the comments of the presidency on the Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited and GRA, that is the Ghana Revenue Authority, revenue assurance contracts in the downstream petroleum sector. During a familiarization tour of SML yesterday, Mr. Atachian stated that it would be prejudicial to comment on the contract as President Akufo Addo had appointed a tax audit and advisory firm, KPMG, to conduct an immediate audit into the contract. When asked whether SML merits the alleged $100 million that is in that annual deal, Mr. Atachian maintained that the committee was waiting for the findings of the presidency based on the report by KPMG, after which it would engage SML. Wahala never they finish. Oh. Anyway, and then we can talk about Jospong. The Jospong group of companies on Monday achieved another milestone with the signing of a memorandum of understanding with the Lagos state government to provide solutions to recycling, treatment, and processing of waste. And details in the newspaper there. We congratulate Jospong on that feat. Quick thoughts.
Ben, this SML saga continues to baffle many Ghanaians, especially if you think about how such contracts were entered into in the first place. You know, some of our leaders are very smart people. They know what they're doing, especially when it comes to the bidding process for some of these contracts.
Right.
And our companies or governments must evaluate these bids before they award the contracts. So maybe they can help us understand better. First, what was the criteria that the GRA advertised for the job that eventually was awarded to SML?
Right.
There had to be clearly defined criteria that are critical, to the execution of the contract, such as the level of experience of the bidding company, their technical capabilities, public reputation, and their track record, and so on. And then there has to be evidence where the Ministry of Finance or GRA advertised and invited companies to bid or submit proposals based on the requirements of the project.
Right.
I hope that the reports will come out that we'll get from a KPMG audit and other investigations will clarify, if SML and other bidders were evaluated, including evidence of these technical capabilities that I was talking about.
Right.
In the absence of these, Ghanaians should be really concerned about how some of these things are done by our leaders. As far as the SML lawsuit is concerned, I heard from General Mosquito that anyone at all can file a case in court, but it is the judges who will eventually decide the merit of the matter. So we'll wait and see what the outcome. I know there is a lawsuit in court about this as well. And Ben, if you recall, I reached out to KPMG to understand if they have conflict of interest in this whole matter, because GRA is a client of KPMG. And KPMG is auditing a contract that GRA and the Ministry of Finance they issued. It doesn't look right from a conflict of interest perspective. So I will share the outcome of that inquiry with you as I hear more.
Well, let's get into some other stories. The New Finder newspaper, President Akufo Addo delivers last SONA today. Upon Nkrumah directs opening of Real Estate Agency Council office by April. Fintech Innovation Fund coming to give startups greater investor visibility. And these are all stories we've looked at, apart from the one about Upon Nkrumah. So let me get into that other story. So right there, Minister for Works and Housing, Kojo Upon Nkrumah, has issued a directive to the board and management of the Real Estate Agency Council to ensure the opening of the agency's offices by April this year. Established by law in 2020 through the passage of the Real Estate Agency Act 2020, Act 1047, REAC, as it is called, was mandated with regulating the real estate sector to ensure fairness and transparency in transactions. However, since its establishment, the agency has yet to open its doors to the public. And the minister underscored the importance of minimizing the difficulties citizens face when engaging in real estate transactions. It's one of the most dangerous places. If you unfortunately fall prey to entities that are not exactly kosher, you'll find yourself in very hot waters. Let me add, the Daily Guide newspaper, Hajj gate crashers in trouble. And there is also Nana speaks to MPs today amidst tight security. Oh, one thing on my mind, even as later we'll be talking about the SONA, and of course we'll bring you a live coverage of that later on this channel. The altercation the last time with members of the diplomatic corps, even chastising them a bit. I was right there, and it made for very interesting listening too. But anyway, hopefully today, I've not heard any of our ambassadors and others saying anything. So I guess there'll be no not reprisals, but tongue lashing from the president. But let's get into that Hajj-related story. And this story as well, both on page 6. So let me quickly do those, get your reaction, and we get ready to go. So Hajj gate crashes in trouble. Tough sanctions have been announced by the Saudi authorities against Hajj gate crashes who have already begun across. Okay, so for this year's season, preparations for which have already begun across the world, including Ghana. Now, according to the February 23, 2024 online issue of the Gulf News, quoting the Saudi Ministry of Hajj and Umrah, quote, performing Hajj without obtaining necessary permits is illegal and attracts a fine of 50,000 Saudi riyals. Additionally, individuals caught transporting pilgrims without proper permits will also be slapped with a fine of up to 50,000 Saudi riyals. And so if you are thinking of anything, if you're thinking of participating in the Hajj, you better lace your boots and get things right before you end up in hot waters. But Mahama's 24-hour economy empty slogan. And private legal practitioner and convener of Fix the Country movement, Oliver Mause Bakavomawo, has voiced strong criticism towards former President John Mahama and his proposed 24-hour economy policy. In a Facebook post, Bakavomawo described the policy by the flag bearer of the NDC as lacking substance and called it a strange choice for a flagship agenda. He dismissed the 24-hour economy policy as mere sloganeering and fanfooling by Mr. Mahama. He argued that the policy fails to address the pressing issues faced by Ghanaians and emphasized the need for more practical and effective measures to drive meaningful change. Quick thoughts?
So, man, I think regardless of which political party you support, we all need to embrace this 24-hour economy idea. Last time I talked about how New York City's economy has been experiencing significant growth because of 24-hour economy.
Right.
Also in Asia, we see cities like Shanghai in China also operating on a 24-hour basis. So what are these cities doing or did to support their own 24-hour economies that we can learn from? I think that we should embrace it instead of shutting it down. One, I think we need to think about investing in the development of infrastructure to support a 24-hour economy. And that should include improving our transportation system, expanding access to reliable electricity and water supply,
right,
and enhancing digital connectivity. Now, these cities also provide support to businesses who want to operate during extended hours. And their support include licensing processes, reducing bureaucracy, and providing financial incentives to encourage businesses to operate 24/7.
Right.
From a security and safety perspective, Ben, you will see police patrolling the streets of New York City all the time. There is improved lighting, surveillance system, and other safety measures to create that conducive environment for nighttime activities. Ghana could leverage this similar model, and it will work in Ghana. I am definitely optimistic about this 24-hour economy. And if you think about it, right, China has been actively developing a 24-hour economy to drive economic prosperity, reduce unemployment, and improve the standard of living of its people. China's e-commerce sector, led by companies like Alibaba and JD.com, they have played very significant roles in the growth of their 24-hour economy. So we could leverage some of these lessons and make this thing work. Nobody's saying that it's going to be a walk in the park, right? But to shut it down, I don't think is the right approach. It is working in other cities. Some of us know this for a fact, and Ghana needs to embrace it and work towards making it a reality for the nation.
Thank you very much, Doc, for joining the conversation this morning. We're very grateful for your time. Financial analyst Dr. Wisdom Kofi Dogbe joined us this morning. I'll just leave you with some more headlines. I didn't want any other reflections. ABC News on page 2, Kwame Pianim roots for Baumia, and of course they cite my interview with Kwame Pienim, of course. And then Economy Times, Ghana cedi continues to slide. We've spoken about that. Ghana's 2023-2024 cocoa production to hit 27% lower than previous season. And e-levy collections amounted to 1.19 billion Ghana cedis in 2023. Doc, Akbe, Yedase, thank you for joining the conversation. Right before we go, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Were you trying to say something, Doc?
Say this, right? I wanted to say this. Our cocoa production is going down, but yet still we have policies to import cocoa into the country. My question to you, maybe you can answer me later. What does that mean?
Okay. Well, interesting. We've put it out there. Perhaps those who can give the answers will give the answers. And that is Dr. Wisdom Dogbe, financial analyst. Sports is up next on this channel. You don't want to miss it.
Everyone, welcome to AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi, and we start with the African Games, where one of the venues to be hosting the competition, the Legon Sports Stadium, is about 97% complete. That is according to the venue manager, Dr. Bello Bitigu. Speaking to Joy Sports, he says the facility is ready to host the rest of the continent.
Next week it will be handed over. You can see over there warm-up pitch is ready, the Mondo track is ready. You can see the equipment, they are discharging them and loading them into the vehicle, into the containers, into storage. You can see over here too in the stadium, the grass is being done. The Mondo track is there. Marking will start this evening or tomorrow early in the morning. The VIP is there. Maybe some 2-3% of the work yet to be done. If we go to the rugby, the same thing. So we are really ready as far as the sporting infrastructure is concerned. We are ready and we are sure we shall get to that point by the beginning of the games.
Doc, as a venue manager for the Legon facility, what makes this place very special?
Well, as a venue manager, and what makes it special, I will call it my baby. It started around 2003, and during my tenure, and I recall when I was interviewed, they asked me, what are you going to do with the stadium? I said, I'll complete it before I leave. Lo and behold, I am completing it in my time. So that makes it special. That makes it really great. And look at the warm-up track. Look at the stadium. What do we want again? That makes it special, that it has been completed at this time. And finally, we have seen the light of day. People thought it will never happen. We were skeptical. Where is the money? But we really bulldozed through, started bit by bit. And now the big one has come and it has happened. So it's special, and special too because this is the first time Ghana is hosting the African Games, and we are going to do it on the campus of a university. Again, special because it doesn't happen. Mega events don't normally happen on university campuses. Special again because it is the premier university. Special again because this is a very determining time in the history of sports in Ghana. So it is special on many counts, and we look forward to a very fantastic game.
My colleague Nathaniel Addo, he is currently in Morocco, and he's been engaging some journalists ahead of the African Games, just to have an idea about how some of the countries that will be coming for the African Games are preparing. He spoke to Cameroon journalist Daniel Ekonde, as well as Kenyan journalist Joshua Makori.
I think our preparations started in 2023. I see. We performed so well in the Francophonie Games in Kinshasa, DR Congo. Okay. For the first time in the history of that competition, we won gold in men's football and grabbed a couple of medals in athletics. Well, we are known for football, that's true. But this time around, we seem to be doing quite well in individual sports. In athletics, in judo, weightlifting. I think those are the disciplines that will probably have chances in Accra. Okay, so we sure are expecting something great from you in there. Before you go, let's talk about the
you expect in terms of organization. We saw and Morocco as a nation is also positioning itself, way there.
I've been seeing interesting pictures coming from your sports complex. I think Boteman.
So let me show you how to pronounce it. Boteman.
Okay, Boteman Sports Complex. That's really good. So you guys had a year to the African Games went delayed for a year in order to have got properly prepared for the competition. I think it's going to be a good one. It's going to be and may set the bar high more than what Morocco did in 2019. As time goes on, just like the Africa Cup of Nations, say, 2021 edition in 2022 in Cameroon was the best that we've seen what's happened in Cote d'Ivoire. So why not Ghana? Ghana can do it.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay.
And we're looking forward to seeing your athletes there. So conversations here as we take the thought of journalists who are also following their respective teams here. Joshua McCurry here is my colleague. He works with NTV Kenya. We're going to be having a conversation. Joshua, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, I hope the weather is not taking too much of a toll on you.
Yeah.
All right, tell me, first of all, what's your expectation of organization and how the next Africa Games is going to go in Accra, Ghana?
I'm hoping that Kenya will do well this time round, and you can say we'll host the trials for athletics next week to choose those who will represent Kenya. But already we have the volleyball team, men and women, okay, strikers women and Farmer Stars men, and they qualified when they participated in qualifiers in Egypt, and Farmer Stars beat Burundi to qualify, and Farmer, we're hoping they do well, but you can count for a man for Kenya.
Okay. Let's also talk about the long distance events and also the sprints where now Kenya is making some inroads. What should be the expectation of your athletes?
We are hoping to do well, but they will not come many because men are preparing to go for the Olympics in Paris.
Yeah.
But those who will come, I think they will do well because Kenya is known because of athletics. Yeah.
This new area of sprints, I mean, is a traditional thing with Kenya and the longer distances, but is it something that we should start expecting in the sprints for Kenya?
Yeah.
The shorter distance?
Because of world record, not world, Africa record, Mayala has done a good job and is motivating men athletes, upcoming athletes. They can do well in the short distances because Kenya is known for long distances like marathon, and now we are mourning our record holder Kelvin Kiptum. He died on a road accident and is died to rest today. But I think Kenya is our athletes are coming up well. Yeah.
Very well. Okay, so we wish you well. Thank you. We'll see how it goes back there in Accra. Thank you. All right. So there are more conversations to have with some more of our colleagues from around the continent, and they'll be telling us about what their expectations are regarding how well their athletes are prepared and how much competition they're going to bring to the Africa Games 2023.
That's your sports for now. We do have more sports stories on myjoyonline.com. We appreciate your time.
Welcome back on the AM show. We told you in the beginning that we have a conversation on childhood cancer. We know that more than 1,000 childhood cancer cases are recorded in Ghana annually, and there seems to be an increase in the cases and the cost of treatment in Ghana, and many patients cannot afford it. Let's delve into how some organizations are putting up a First Africa Treatment Center here in Ghana. I'm joined in the studio by Dr. Tanya Tribet, who's the president of Wish for Life Foundation. Good morning, Dr. Tribet.
Good morning.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Wish for Life is a foundation primarily that takes care of childhood cancer, is it?
That's correct. That's correct.
Right. So let's begin the conversation. We know that about 1,200 cases of childhood cancer is recorded annually. What do you think is the reason, or what accounts for the increase in cases that we are seeing these days?
It's not clear, but globally the amount of children who are developing childhood cancer is increasing. There are many studies that are looking at environment and other causes. We do know that ultimately there's a genetic change that happens that causes many of the cancers to occur.
I had a chance to do a story about 2 months ago at Kolebu, I think the Rebecca Akufo Addo house,
Yes.
where it's a facility that houses children living with cancer and their parents. And
Yes.
one of the things that they talked about that was very touching was the cost implications of treating childhood cancer. And these parents have to stay with the children. It means that they can no longer go out and find means of living, funding their lives and all that. So let's talk about the cost of treatment of childhood cancers.
Yeah, so the medicines that are used are well known, that are very effective. So the most important thing to know is that childhood cancer is curable.
Okay.
In the United States, 80 to 85% of children are cured of many of the childhood cancers. And what we now have to tackle is making that treatment accessible.
Okay.
The medicines themselves are expensive. And so obviously—
How expensive would you say?
It depends on where you're from.
Okay.
Where I'm from, it's quite expensive. Here, the numbers that have been estimated are right around $9,400 equivalent, which is expensive. So one of the things that I think will be important is that the global community needs to unite to help to take some of the burden away from families. Oftentimes for parents, this means one parent has to stop working to take care of the child. So the income of the family is cut in half.
Yeah.
And so to cover the cost of care, then to cover the cost of lodging, food and other needs, then it becomes very prohibitive.
Yeah. So in Ghana, for instance, how much does an average person need? You said $9,000 to $10,000 in the US. Here in Ghana, do you know how much it costs to treat cancer?
That's an aggregate, you know. So when we look at other places in the world where I practice, it's much higher than that. So it's close to about $100,000 US to beginning.
Okay.
There is not a way to reduce the cost of care because the medicines themselves have a certain markup. The advantages that you have here in Ghana is that many of the medicines come from Europe. The prices are lower, so they're subsidized. And there are compassionate components of each of the pharmaceutical industries programs that allow now for medicines to be more accessible and to be offered at a lower rate.
Right, that's good to know. So let's talk about the facility that you are rebuilding, right?
Yeah, so we're starting to build.
So, yes.
Yes. So we're planning.
So just tell us more about that.
Sure, I'd love to do that. We are building a 100-bed hospital that will be only for children who have cancer.
100-bed facility.
100-bed, yes. Yes, and there'll be residential facilities on the property. So approximately about 180 residential facilities, also for children who are going through outpatient care. And so the plan is to make those rooms available for children in Ghana and also children from the ECOWAS nations.
Where will this facility be situated?
So it's just north and east of Chebbi, so it's in Asakam.
Okay.
So it's between Kumasi and Accra.
Is it just a housing facility for children with cancer, or it comes with a hospital and hospital?
So the hospital is the key component.
Okay.
So the hospital will be a 100-bed hospital, cancer center. And then surrounding will be residential facilities. We talked about one of the economic challenges that's experienced. Many children have to travel with their families longer distances to be able to receive this type of care. So we know that there needs to be lodging close to the hospital that makes it easier for families to be able to reside close to the place where the treatment is being delivered.
100-bed facility is a big facility. How are you funding this?
So it's all privately donated. We have donors from the United States who are giving support for this. And then we're beginning to open a campaign, which we talked about in October here, that's called the Voices for Life campaign. It's a global campaign to help to support children who need the therapy the most in developing nations. And so one of the places that we've chosen first is here. Okay. So we're looking to galvanize the global community to help us to fundraise to be able to support the initiative here.
It's a great initiative. How different would this be from the other facilities or hospitals that we already know exist?
Well, you have excellent facilities here. What we're looking is to be able to provide care to more of those children that are not having access to care. So it's not to be competitive, but to be able to provide the resources that are necessary. What may be different is the type of tools that we use for diagnosis. So we're looking to bring a type of imaging that's very important in cancer now called positron emission tomography. So it's PET scanning, which will help us to better detect the cancer within the body. And it will also allow us through the course of treatment to know that our medicines are working more effectively.
Right.
So this is one of the areas that we're really excited about bringing that's brand new to the country. In addition, we'll begin to expand the number of medicines that we know is effective and works, for children with their cancer.
So how much will people be required to pay for this, or would the prices, the cost be subsidized as well?
So what we're looking at is subsidizing strategies to subsidize the cost. Obviously, Ghana is very progressive in that they have included childhood cancer now in the National Health Insurance Scheme, which is a major step forward. We know that there may be other needs that may require additional funding, and so we're looking to subsidize that through endowment funds as well to support the needs of children.
Okay, we know that early detection is primary, pivotal in the treatment of cancer. So aside building this facility, do you have any plans of increasing awareness, sensitizing? Tell me a little bit more.
Yes, so we're already starting the process by giving shows much like what you have, and then more focus shows on television and radio and in the newspaper, segments that give more awareness. And we know that early detection, the earlier detect the cancer, the higher the chance of cure. Right. So we'll begin to implement as we begin to build, at the same time, a variety of ways that we will access the media to be able to educate the public about childhood cancer.
You talked about global community and collaborations. What about the government of Ghana? Do you have any sort of partnership with them or anything? Are they offering some sort of support? Anything in the works so far?
The good part is that we're co-creating together.
Okay.
So there are many divisions that we're working with right now that are important stakeholders. Okay. The plan is for the hospital to be run by the citizens of Ghana. Okay. So I won't be the chairman of the hospital, but we'll certainly help to shepherd and make sure everything gets done. But already we're working with multiple teams to make this happen, and they've been fantastic. So
which means your nurses and doctors and workers will be here from Ghana.
That's right, that's the plan.
Okay.
And then also we're working with the agencies to begin to build out the network. So we're visiting this time to begin to start the steps of building an information technology network that will support the hospital. That takes a little bit longer than building the hospital.
I know you are doing this out of the goodness of your heart, and the children who come to your facility will be blessed to have such a place to go to for treatment. What is the overall intention you hope to achieve at the end of this?
I've been fortunate now for 30 years to take care of thousands of children, many of which who are alive now and have their own children and families. Yeah. So the fulfillment for me is seeing the person leave the cancer behind. So I always tell my children, cancer can just become a page in a book of your life, and that's our goal, not to become your entire life story. And so what I want to see is that same opportunity be present for children here, to know that they have the same access to care. Yeah. There's no difference by where you live or who you are, the color of your skin, that you should be able to have the same quality of care. And also for the parents to have that same hope. And not only hope, but to see the actualization of their dream for their child to be returned to health again and not to worry about the cancer
Which
any
means
longer.
while your children are receiving cancer treatment, you can also go about your life,
Absolutely.
work and trying to make ends meet so that you can again support your children. Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Tribbitt. Any final words before we wrap this up?
What I would say to the parents who are suffering with their child, don't give up hope, continue to fight, and we will look for a promise for you for tomorrow that your child will get better. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That is Dr. Tanya Tribbitt, President of Wish for Life Foundation. We're building a treatment center here in Ghana for children with cancer. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yes. Stay with us. Up next, we're going to talk about the Right to Information Bill. We know that the submission of annual reports by public institutions is a mandatory activity to be performed by all public institutions. We'll be joined by the RTI Commission to discuss the nuances of this bill and how to effectively implement it. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's still the AM show, and it's time now for us to discuss the RTI law. It took over 20 years of back and forth for this bill to be passed, and it was finally passed in 2019. And since it's been passed, it started implementing in 2020. And we know that it is a law that gives constitutional rights to individuals to access official information. But there are other nuances on this law that we're about to discuss now. I'm joined in the studio by a representative from the RTI Commission, Michael Dodu Sechiama, who is the head of Policy Planning, Budget, Monitoring and Evaluation Department of the RTI Commission. Welcome, Michael Dodu Sechiama, to the conversation.
Thank you, sweetie. But before we proceed, just a correction.
Yeah.
I am not the head.
Okay.
I am the manager at the Policy Planning, Budgets and
Monitoring Department. That's a lot. As a commission that was, established to promote, monitor, ensure, enforce this RTI Commission, and nearly half a decade since its implementation. Let's start with a simple question. How is it faring? How significant has this law been, especially in Ghana's institutional culture of silence?
Okay, so thank you. In the past 3 years, I would say the law has helped the public persons and the institutions to have access to information. The situation of public institutions mostly holding on to information has to a large extent been curtailed, and we've had persons, students, media persons, all manner of people applying for information under the law, and now it's become more convenient, easy for them to access information. So I would say it has become very useful.
Right. So under this law, it says the submission of annual reports by institutions, public institutions, is mandatory.
Yes.
What is a public institution as defined by this, the clause of this law, so that we understand what we're talking about?
So every institution that provides public service and also receive funding from government is classified as a public institution.
Okay.
So long as you provide public service, receive funding from state, then you are considered to be a public institution.
And these institutions are mandated to produce or to submit an annual report to the Commission. At what point in the year? Or when is the deadline for the submission of these reports?
So the Act says that 60 days after 31st of December, all public institutions are supposed to prepare their reports and submit to the Right to Information Commission.
Okay.
Yes.
What should the report entail? What's in this report that you need from these public institutions?
So the report basically covers activities that the public institution has undertaken under the Act in the preceding year, so from January to December. In this instance, it will be January 2023 to December 2023. And it must include all applications that the public institution has received, requests that it has granted or approved,
okay,
declined or, sorry,
so the institution's report must include the number of applications that they've received by private individuals and organizations, from applicants.
Yes.
And the ones they've granted.
Yes.
And what's
the ones they have deferred or referred or declined, and they must state the reasons for which information was declined or refused.
Has this been the case?
So yes, it has been. In 2020, we've received about 50 applications, reports actually, and 2021 increased to 189, and then in 2022 to 382. So we are seeing improvements in the submission of annual reports by public institutions. There's a reason why our being here today is very important to us, that we continue to or sustain the awareness that we have to create for public institutions to understand the importance. It's actually mandatory. So all public institutions are required by the Act to submit their annual reports to the Commission.
How do you monitor this? How do you ensure that all public institutions are actually submitting this mandated reports that they're supposed to be giving you?
So first off, what we've done over the period is to publish, cause to be published in the print media, announcing to public institutions to submit their report within the stipulated time.
Right.
We've also gone ahead to follow up with phone calls to remind public institutions. And this platform is also providing another avenue for us to reach out to all public institutions to remind them of their duty under the law to submit their annual reports. So, and these are the ways by which we try to ensure that public institutions are complying with the law to submit annual reports.
And if they don't, what are the repercussions? And then how should they, how's the submission process?
So you can either submit hard copies to the premises of the Commission at Jowlu, or you can send via email through a dedicated email address, reports@rtic.gov.gh, and copy the official email address of the Commission, which is rticommission@rtic.gov.gh, or you can send it by mail through our postal address, PO Box YK Kanda. For those who want to submit hard copies, let me check the correct address for you. The digital address is GA1561702, or they can come to number 4 First Osubadu Link, Jowlu.
That is those who want to submit the reports in person. And then the email, again, is?
The email is reports@rtic.gov.gh, and copy our official email address, which is rticommission@rtic.gov.gh.
What do you do with these reports?
So
how significant is it? What's the use?
We compile all the reports that the public institutions submit to the Commission, and we submit them to Parliament. So the law asks us to submit all the compiled reports to Parliament at the end of June.
Okay, so when an institution, a public institution, refuses or fails to submit this mandatory report, are there any repercussions?
Our interest mainly is to sustain the awareness and ensure that all public institutions comply with this law. So through our monitoring activities, if we realize that public institutions are not complying with these laws, we try to undertake sensitization and training for them to understand the need, after which and give them time to generate the resources to be able to, undertake this very important process. After which the Commission can then go ahead and apply administrative penalties.
Okay, so tell me more about that administrative penalty. How much are we talking about?
And it is determined by the governing board. So
right.
There isn't a specific amount. So depending on the situation. All situations may not be the same.
Right. So the RTI law or Act 2019, Section 3 of it says public institutions are obliged to compile and publish an up-to-date information in a form of manual every 12 months. What's the purpose of this manual?
The manual...
And just to be clear, it's different from the annual report.
Yes.
Okay, so...
So the information manual, in summary, is to provide the applicants with information on the list of information that they can apply to at the public institution. The information manual is also supposed to contain information about the departments and units of the organization, the kind of information that they generate, and also the contact details of the information officer. So they must have the name of the information officer, the phone number, the email of the information officer, to make it easy for them to make it easy for applicants to submit applications to the information officer. Also to be included is in the information manual is the list of the types of information that may be assessed or inspected free of charge at the premises of the public institution.
Again, these public institutions are supposed to have a separate bank account for RTI-related matters. Yes. So what monies will be in this account, and what would they be used for?
So the money that are supposed to be, the account purposely is to retain charges for the
what, activities or requests?
For functions that the public institution will perform under the RTI Act. So it's just some resources that they can get, for the public institution can get to undertake RTI-related activities.
Let's make it practical so we can paint a clearer picture. Assuming I run a public institution, exactly what constitutes that account, that financial account for RTI-related matters?
So the account is to retain charges for the cost of reproduction of information.
That means that receiving requests for information and everything that goes into providing that information.
Exactly.
Does it come at a cost? If someone comes to us, request for information from you, I didn't know that
information is free, but the nature of the reproduction of the information, that may accrue some cost. So if you, for instance, request for information and the information must be put on a pen drive. The pen drive costs money. So the public institution may charge for the pen drive, but not for the information.
Okay.
Yes.
And you need this information to... What do you need this information for? The cost of producing or providing the information that is requested? Because I think it's not that significant. So correct me if I'm wrong. A cost of pen drive, printing a piece of paper, how important are these that you need, as a commission, need to be provided with these pieces of information? So
it's for the purpose of, monitoring the effectiveness of our operations. For instance, the implementation of the law. We need to compile data on how public institutions are complying with the law. So all of these things, the monies that are collected are not transferred to the commission. They are for the operations in the public institutions, and not to be transferred to the RTI Commission.
Okay, so is that why you need these public institutions to keep separate accounts from the other running accounts or operational?
Yes, because the monies that are retained by the public institutions are supposed to be used to defray expenses incurred by the public institutions in the performance of their functions under the RTI law. So they must not be, mixed up with other funds that they may receive from other operations of the public institution.
Right. Any final words before we wrap this up?
Just to reach out to all public institutions and ask them to comply with the law. We expect that by after 60 days, all annual reports should be submitted to the RTI Commission.
Right. Thank you, Michael Dodu Sechiama, who's the manager of the Policy Planning, Budget, Monitoring and Evaluation Department of the RTI Commission. The institution established, the commission established to promote, enforce and implement the RTI law. Stay with us. We have more next. We're going to talk about the SONA. Benjamin Akakpo will be up next, bringing you everything that encapsulates the SONA. We'll be back shortly.
I personally, how expensive things are on the market. We are students. Sometimes you have to buy books, you have to buy textbooks to study, you have to buy other things, and the things are just increasing. The moment you go, maybe you buy a textbook for 50 cedis, the next time you go is 70 cedis. And we are students schooling. So, yeah, he should do something about it.
Things regarding to the economy and also employment opportunities for the youth. That's what I want to mainly see, because these days youth unemployment is on the rise. So I'm thinking that there should be a policy that would give employment to the youth.
Me personally, my expectation is for the president to tell us why he changed some ministerial positions, especially like the key ministerial positions like the financial minister of finance, and now he's giving him a special advisor to the president on economic and negotiations. So meaning that he take him from there from fire pan to fire. I mean, anytime there's a contract concerning finance, he's still the one that's going to hold it. So meaning he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything obvious. It's just like, and I want him to also address an issue on the KPI, why he said the KPI should go and audit.
KPMG, you mean?
KPMG should go and audit.
On the SML deal.
On the SML deal. Why? I can't believe somebody can give contract for 10 years. It's not believable. It's violated the procurement rule that somebody should give a...
Student leaders, we expect that at the end of the day, the president will tackle on the TVET, progress of TVET, what they are doing to make sure that the technical universities in the country are uplifted to the standard that we all want to see it. Being called technical university isn't just the main idea or the motive behind changing it from polytechnics to technical universities, but we should see production, we should see productivity at the end of the day. The technical university students or graduates are people that government can use to develop this country. With technical education, I believe that we will not be where we are. We will not be waiting for IMF bailouts and the rest, because we have the technocrats in the country. How do we make and package these people? At the end of the day, contracts that are awarded in this country are given to technocrats who are graduates from the technical universities. Contracts that has to do with electricals, manufacturing. We have the people in this state. Let's use our own people, and this country will be a place where everybody would want to visit. For instance, you take a look at the labor we produce every now and then. There are countries who are in need of trained labor. We have these people from our technical universities. The government can liaise with the technical universities. At the end of the day, we can export labor to countries where the government will be making something out of it, and will be creating employment for graduates from the technical university. So we would want to also him to touch on the delays in the student loan trust fund. Most of our colleagues who apply for these things are not able to get it in time to pay their fees, hence hindering their progress in education. We also want him to look at the scholarship schemes in this country. What should be the motive behind awarding students scholarships? Let's focus on the technical education. Let's give scholarships to people who are deserving of it, not MPs and people who are in privileged positions already. Let's give it to the people who actually deserve it. So these are many of the things that we expect as leaders of the technical universities in the country from the government of the Ghana. For instance, if you go to Wa Technical University or Dr. Hileliman Technical University, this is the only university in the country without a hostel facility. Can you believe that?
Welcome back. Of course, our focus is going to be on the SONA. And today, President Akufo is expected to deliver his last State of the Nation address. He's expected to give an account of how he's managed the country over the past year and give a projection of what to expect as the year wears on. This being his last is going to be crucial. We'll also have a review of SONA 2023 and a preview of SONA 2024. Right before I announce the guests joining me to analyze the entire situation on governance, economy, agriculture, and all of that, what you just saw was, our going out there, the citizens' microphone, our engagement with ordinary Ghanaians on the streets. That was from Accra, and you heard the sentiments shared there. We'll also be sharing with you in the course of this conversation the sentiments from Kumasi in the Ashanti region. Just a sample what is percolating in your minds in respect of the State of the Nation address. Popularized under John Agyekum Kufuor, it's been through a series of events in Parliament, and today we'll have another installment, the last for President Akufo. But joining us for a discussion on some of these salient matters, Dr. Michael Ayamga. He's a development economist and senior lecturer, University for Development Studies. He joins the conversation. Doc, good morning.
Good morning, Ben. Happy to see you again.
It's good to have you join the conversation. Now, we'll focus on governance-related matters, among others, and of course, we'll also talk about the economy. But I'd like to find out from you, in summary, since this is going to be the last effort, the last push of President Akufo, how would you assess him in terms of governance and everything you've seen up till now, and then you can break down your assessment from last year to this time this year?
Well, thank you very much. I was just looking at the background on your screen, and I remember the first time the president walked into Parliament to deliver the State of the Nation address. The enthusiasm, the optimism, even those who were skeptical about his ability to lead this country were all optimistic, because despite the challenges we had, the country had just weathered the energy crisis storm and was ready to take off. I think that the president, on seeing the economy, he was so shocked that Ghana was in that state that he said that, Ghana can do without aid. So he became an international star, traveling from country to country, meeting donor agency to donor agency, and telling them that Ghana is beyond aid. I quite remember some of my German friends sending a soundbite of the president telling European Union leaders that Ghana was pursuing a path beyond aid. You look at that picture and you compare it today when he walks into Parliament, this time not behind and not being led by the Honorable Michael Quay, but the Right Honorable Alban Gwagwi. You look at the contrast between then and now, and that sums up what the president has done in the last 8 years. To all intents and purposes, I don't want to belittle other Ghanaians. I believe we all want the good of the country. So I am no more a Ghanaian than the president is, but judging by his record, I think that he should be apologizing to Ghanaians in the first step. He should acknowledge failures in his government and move on. But I can tell you that we moved from a country that was seen as capable of going without aid to a country that people think that we are a lost cause and we must do debt restructuring in order for us to be supported. It is not something to be playing diplomacy and politics with. I think that the last 8 years have been lost. 7 years. They are lost years in Ghana, lost opportunity and severe hardship. If you take governance, our institutions are at their lowest level. They are very weak, not able to hold anybody into check. checks and balances are almost non-existent. And if you look at the economy, I don't need to say much. We all have the numbers to look at. I followed one of my idols in the country, Honorable Kwame Pianim, and when he said that this country has no economy, I felt that was the classic definition of the state of Ghana's situation. We virtually do not have an economy to manage. We are on autopilot and food is being served in the plane, hoping that we find a place to land and then the next crew takes over. But if you ask me now, I think that the president ought to be very honest with us. This is his last State of the Nation address. And personally, I am glad it is that we are going to have fresh blood come next year and that the president will be bold enough to admit that he failed Ghanaians largely, not intentionally.
Are you holding your breath for that, for any sort of apology? You know that's not going to happen.
Yes, that's not going to happen because he's a politician. That is not going to happen because he thinks that many Ghanaians don't know. That is not going to happen because of the extent to which politicians think the citizenry are gullible. That is not going to happen because they think that no matter what happens, there's a certain group of people in the country that will ignore that and still follow their lead. So that is why it is not going to happen. Anywhere in the world, half of this government would have resigned. The president probably would be facing serious questions if he was still in office anyway. So we don't need to be diplomatic with the president. Has it been a total disaster? No, I would say that he has made successes somewhere in terms of, I always mention it, his ability and his instrumentality in securing peace in Dagon, but that has almost been wiped out by his failure to stabilize the situation in Baku. And more or less, we see the state agencies, the security agencies more or less acting like enablers of the conflict in Baku, further internally displacing people and causing massive hardship in the country. So, yes, he did do well with Dagon, putting his foot on the ground and ensuring that we have some kind of peace in Dagon. But that has been wiped out, as I said, by Baku. His statements in the past suggesting that he's a highly transactional president that has believed in the philosophy of quid pro quo, scratch my back and I'll scratch your back, has further made him lose the shine that he had, the expectation we had about him. Regardless of me, I didn't vote for him. I don't think I did the second time. I don't know. But we have always seen a President Akufo.
You've forgotten whether or not you voted for Akufo in the second term. Is that what you're saying? How could you possibly forget?
I want you to feel good because I didn't. The second time I didn't. I don't have to.
Did you vote for Akufo the first time?
All I can say is that I've voted MPP before. I've been a polling agent for MPP before. So
you've been a polling agent for the MPP before?
Oh yeah. When I was at the university, I have been before. So when I say things, I say them out of my desire to see this nation move forward. I don't look forward to any opportunities. I speak the way I speak now. If you check my track record, my blogs, and you see when NDC was in power, you will think I was a member of the MPP. So I believe that facts ought to be spoken and spoken unequivocally. And I think that many people who voted for President Akufo have regretted it. Many of us saw him as an icon, a pillar, a beacon of freedom of speech. And he has come to do the exact opposite. There has never been a time that journalists are scared like they are now. Radio stations are being closed left, right, and center. And you have people walking into studios and beating journalists and so on and so forth. In the past, we saw them even getting imprisoned, and one president pardoned them. Here, nothing even happened. And that is the difference and how far we have fallen. So even on the rule of law, we have the challenge. On the issue of checks and balances or equal branches of the press, executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, we see that independence almost shrinking and the president expanding his powers. An example is what happened during the call by MPs for the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta to step aside. The president did not only whip them in line, he ensured that they all obeyed what he wanted, and then eventually he decided to remove him and elevate him to a Minister of Finance in the presidency. So you have the actual Minister of Finance answerable to a Minister of Finance at the presidency.
And that's a conversation. That's a conversation we can have shortly, because yes, now it's been confirmed. Ken Ofori-Atta, for example, being that special advisor and investment consultant, so to speak, for government. But hold for me, Dr. Ayamga. Let's go to Parliament this morning. Our parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante is on hand. He's going to walk us through what we can expect today and give us timelines. Kweku Asante, if you can hear me from Parliament, what is going on? What do you see? What can you tell us?
Well, very shortly, we expect that the President and his entourage, as well as some dignitaries who have been invited to honor this message on the State of the Nation address, will now come in. But it's an empty house now. MPs are not yet seated. We expect that in the coming hours, all of them will now troop in to take their seats. It's the President's penultimate message on the State of the Nation address, what we all normally call the State of the Nation address. And so the President is expected somewhere in December or early January to address Parliament again before he finally leaves office at the end of his 8-year tenure. So it's a 4-item agenda today. On the floor of the House, there are going to be prayers, there are going to be the national pledge, there will be a statement by the Right Honourable Speaker, and then the President, His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo, will deliver his message on the State of the Nation address. In fact, if you look at the days now, the chairs are set. The President's days that he speaks on has also been set, and so very soon that the expectation is that the President will now come in for the message to be delivered. But today we expect the President to hammer on the economic challenges that the country has been facing over the past few years and what exactly his government has been doing to fix that. The economy is currently struggling. Government says they've turned the corner. We expect the President to give some better and further specifics on that. We also have a new majority leader in Parliament. This is his first official assignment. And so, Akakpo, the expectation in Parliament, in fact, we've been engaging the expectation of MPs ahead of the State of the Nation address, what exactly it is they expect the President to say about what really the State of the Nation is. Of course, as usual, this has been divisive along partisan lines. We have the NDC MPs really believing that the President has nothing new to tell Ghanaians and that the true state of the nation is felt in the people's pocket. The true state of the nation is felt in terms of the level of inflation in the country, that the true state of the nation is felt in terms of lending rates and all the crucial economic challenges we face now. The governing side, however, tell us that they believe that a lot of things have been done by this government to ensure that things are turned for the better. And so it's expected to be the normal partisan things we see here. We expect that MPs will come in, usually with their placards, every now and then singing chants to the President. For those who support him and those who do not, probably will be saying certain things. So, Akakpo, the President's message on the State of the Nation address has been expected. This is the first time in a long while that we haven't had fluctuating dates. The President announcing that this is the specific date they are going to address the nation, and then it will be moved. Today, the 27th of February, the President is coming into Parliament. A number of dignitaries are expected. The question also is whether or not the former President, John Dramani Mahama, will come. He has skipped a number of national events that have been heralded by President Akufo. We would expect to know if he will be here. As of yesterday, he was in the Savannah region concluding his Building the Ghana We Want tour. And so we expect that he may be coming in here, expecting that the next major State of the Nation address will be conducted by him if he's lucky enough to be elected again by the people of Ghana to become the President again. So that is the state in Parliament now. Empty chambers, it's almost 9 a.m., but proceedings hasn't quite started yet. Yesterday, we were picking some signals that the Speaker of Parliament wanted to do something new. He wanted to ambush the President with the anti-gay bill, and that this morning the anti-gay bill may have been passed before the State of the Nation address, but that has not found expression on the other paper. And so this will largely be ceremonial. There will be the prayers, there will be the national pledge, there will be a statement by the Right Honourable Speaker Alban Kingsford Sumana Bagbin, and then the President will zoom in right into the national address. Normally, this is expected to start at 10 a.m., but as we've known over the past few years, this delays quite some time, and sometimes it goes up until noon, midday. So the Parliament has really been prepared for today's occasion, and MPs on both sides really say that they really want to listen to what the president has to say, including some majority MPs, of course, questions about whether or not Ken Ofori-Atta's new position is merited and all that. So we will get to find out in terms of how that message will go down with Ghanaians. Benjamin.
Well, Kweku, thank you very much. That is Kweku Asante. He is our parliamentary correspondent, bringing us these tidbits from within the chamber of Parliament. Of course, one thing you cannot guarantee, like he made mention of, in recent years, the days have not exactly been constant. Oh, it will be today, and then it's been shifted. Today, we're having it. They're sticking to the date, but the time usually is where the devil is. But you can trust us right here to bring you every last bit of that address. Let me come back to Dr. Michael Ayamga. If you can hear me, you had started talking about Ken Ofori-Atta lurking in the shadows. Now, there's some interesting bit in there, because now we've seen that release from the office of the president, which talks about his appointment as senior presidential advisor and special envoy for international finance and private sector investments. It's dated, guess when? The 15th of February, 2024. What makes this interesting is the fact that it had been spoken of, there had been no reaction. I had an interaction with Kwame Pianim, himself a stalwart of the MPP, who had said before this had been made known. Kwame Pianim, mind you, is an economic advisor on Baumia's campaign team. On the campaign committee, he's an economic advisor. He had said that it would be a terrible move to appoint Ken Ofori-Atta, the former finance minister, in these capacities. That would be like having him, Dr. Amin, having someone looking over his shoulders, and it has happened. You had started talking about that. What is your thinking of that, even before we focus a bit on the economy?
Disgraceful is a clear indication of some lack of confidence in the competence of my good friend Adam. He is not only somebody I believe is capable. He's somebody who is a very driven individual and go to all extents to achieve results, even if it means speaking to people he knows are not in agreement with him politically. So to now have him at the helm of affairs with his former boss close to the president, with a title and a portfolio that is largely undefined, largely overarching over anything that the Minister of Finance is going to do, is worrying. You are looking at investment and also financial issues. And last time I checked, that is a function of the Minister of Finance. So I'm particularly worried that because of the public outcry over the performance of Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, the president has decided to move the Minister of Finance to the presidency and appointed Ken Ofori-Atta still as the Minister of Finance, but under a different portfolio. Believe me or not, I believe Mohamed Amin Adam is going to be having to take some orders from that so-called special.
But you cannot say that for sure. You cannot say that for sure. It doesn't necessarily. You cannot say that for sure.
It's special. When somebody is special, it means that it breaks the norms of everything, due process. And when he speaks, he has to listen. He's a senior advisor. That means that all other advisors fall in line. It is just like making him a little above the vice president, which I'm not surprised. But you see, this is a cliche. From where I sit as a northerner, I always have. Sometimes when you are given the opportunity to do something, you have to do it under somebody. You are never really power and given the opportunity to take your own choices. It's happening to Honorable Mohamed Amin Adam, unfortunately. Many know that it has happened to the vice president, and the vice president himself came out to say he is not in charge. That showed that he was dominated over 7 years, a sign of weaknesses, but anyway, it happened. So you now have Mohamed Amin Adam made finance minister, just in the books, and you have a real finance minister.
Are you suggesting a perpetuation of ethnic bias against people of northern extraction? Is that what you are suggesting?
I don't have to say it. I don't want to go down that debate, but that has always been a case here. If it gets to a time that people are calling for inclusion and diversity, they get a northerner, put him somewhere and weaken him so that he is there just as a figurehead and still others are calling the shots. I believe that it is high time that we northerners begin to speak this unequivocally. It doesn't matter which party we are in. That when we are given a position, we want to be given the position and the powers that go with it, rather than giving that superficial appointment for us to just take salaries and others do the work. You are here in this country when the vice president, somebody who is number 2 in the hierarchy of things in this country, who acts as president when the president is not around, who is chairman of the economic management team, who the Honorable Osafo Mafo came out to praise highly as being instrumental and other things, come to tell you that he is just a driver mate. In fact, the kind of driver mate that has never driven the car but wants to now own his own car. That is a cliche of what always happens when you have this so-called inclusive and inclusion politics, where some people from so-called ethnic minorities and people at the periphery are seen to be empowered on paper, but behind the scenes controlled and by some puppet masters. This is the kind of structure you have, where you have a minister that is one way or the other at the mercy of an advisor in the presidency, who happens to be the cousin of the president, who has been at the helm of affairs for 7 years. You found the need that, okay, he has to give way. And then you appoint him, more or less elevating him and giving him a position that is fluid, that has no boundaries. That's more or less what I say. Nobody knows who the special advisor answers to, apart from the president. And this is the murky situation that the Honorable Mohamed Amin Adam is going to find himself. Even if Kenneth Forita is an advisor, he's going to be able to overrule what Mohamed Amin Adam does just by speaking into the ear of the president. And this is very worrying. I feel for him. Years back, knowing him when we were growing up, I believe he would have walked away. But he thinks he owes this country a lot, even despite the difficult situation. He wants to do something. I pity him anyway, but he has my prayers. But this smacks of a lack of confidence in the existing system. The last time we spoke, I told you that it is a cabinet of armor bearers. Everyone you have in cabinet, most of them have their godfathers lurking in the corridors of power, either as ministers or advisors. And the president just changed the names to save the criticism, but didn't change the actors who are still behind the scenes doing the same old things that they did that brought us here. So I'm particularly disappointed that the president was bold enough to fool Ghanaians. I don't blame him. We have been gullible for 7 years. Maybe it's time we start asking questions and speaking directly to him like I'm doing, because he is our president, he's an elected leader, and sometimes nobody hates Ken Oforiatta. We just felt that he was very bad at the office. He didn't do a lot. He led this country onto his knees. Didn't take us to hospital when we needed to go to hospital. Carried us there in the structure. And when they give us medicine, he tend to administer it and administered it wrongly. If you are changing a doctor, you change to save a life. You just don't change because you think that the person needs to step aside. That is a very, very low bar that the president has set. And I believe that he ought to take this job very seriously.
Right. Let me come in with this. Of course, there's the intervention. Kwame Pianim also asked in that interaction with me, we don't even have an economy. So what is he going to advise on? That is Kwame Pianim on Ken Oforiatta. We don't even have an economy. So what is he going to advise on? Which feeds into part of what you've been saying. But I'd like to find out from you, speaking about the economy, there's, for example, when you look at the graphic business today, you would find out that a tax expert has even said that in respect of Dr. Baumia's tax proposals, they require careful analysis because some of what he's projecting may not necessarily pan out. But focusing on the economy between the last SONA and what we're expecting today, considering factors such as inflation, taxes, the exchange rate, interest rates, the cost of utilities, the general cost of doing business, adding that to the fact that Ghana can't be found in the top 11 when it comes to growth forecasts for economies. Guess what? Niger, Cooled Niger, is projected to grow at 11.2%. Senegal, Libya, Rwanda, 7.2%. Côte d'Ivoire, neighboring Côte d'Ivoire, 6.8%. Ethiopia, 6.7%. Benin, 6.4%. Djibouti, Tanzania, Togo, 6%. And I'm not denigrating any country by re-echoing, but sometimes we look at other places and think, oh, this and that. Togo is growing at 6%. Uganda, 6%. We are expected to grow at around 4%. That paints a picture. When you look at the economic landscape, how would you assess this administration from the last SONA to what we're expecting today?
Yeah, Ben, and I think I have to also say something. The 4% you just indicated is also contentious. The IMF is projecting us to go around 2.8%. Some people have it that we may do 1.8, 1.9. So the 4% is very magnanimous on your part. But I can understand, you see, Ben, we just came out of COVID and the Ukraine war. And that is why Togo is doing better than us. Djibouti is doing better than us. Niger, that is under military junta, shut under heavy sanctions from ECOWAS, is trade and everything is under shambles, is begging to feed its people, yet it's growing. So you can understand. I think that it is Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky that causing the problems for Ghana alone. And that's what the president will tell you. If he doesn't...
Dr. Ayamga, my sincere apologies. I'm going to have to do this. If you could just hold on that analysis just briefly. I want to take a bit of Dr. Peter Anti, who is on a time leash. He's on a bit of a time leash. So if you don't mind, you can just hold on to your thoughts on these. Don't forget them. I'll come right back to you. Is that okay, Dr. Ayamga?
Oh, I'm good, Ben.
All right, I'll come right back to you. Let me also bring into the conversation Dr. Peter Anti, and we'll also be heading to Kumasi in between to get some thoughts from those in the Ashanti region and what they are expecting from the SONA. Dr. Anti, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, my brother.
Good to have you join the conversation. I don't know how much time you have. I don't know whether I'll go to Kumasi and come to you, but we can start the conversation from your end. Education, I know you're going to be focusing more on that, but generally, I would ask you, how do you think we fared between the last SONA and this one? Or last year by this time and this SONA that we're about to hear?
I think in certain areas we've done well. We've seen the reopening of some of the STEM schools that are up and running, and the president mentioned that in the last SONA. So we've seen a considerable investment in TVET, and the president mentioned that in the last SONA. I think we've had challenges with the issue of Wi-Fi in the schools, which I think is on the low side. I don't know the current state of the University of Agric Science at Bunsu, but it was mentioned in the last SONA. So I would say that it looks well from on the surface, but of course we will need to delve deeper into it and see that the things that the president talked about last year have really gotten to the level that we would wish they are, especially since technically this is their last year in government.
Have things gotten or got worse, basically?
For if we're restricting ourselves to the issues that were listed in the last year's SONA, then there are basically about 5 of them. Out of the 5 that were mentioned, one, he talked about the reopening of schools under good conditions, that is coming back from the COVID era. And I think that in now there are a lot of safety improvements in our schools, except that in terms of the health facilities, we have not done well. During the COVID, we were able to link some of these schools to what we call their health centers. So when a child is not well, the child is supposed to go to a designated hospital that will take care of that particular child within a certain enclave that the school is supposed to be located in. I think after COVID, we have thrown these away. That's why we have had about 3 or 4 instances of health challenges in the schools where under all those circumstances, this year alone, we've lost all those students. So I think that health-wise, we have not done well for our kids. And I think this is a very important thing because, within our system, a certain number of population is supposed to have access to a certain health facility. And that is what brought about the CHIPS compound and all those things. But if you go to our secondary schools, some of them have students more than 3,000. And there isn't any workable health system in those, in our secondary schools, except those that are supposed to be category A schools and have certain kinds of investment from parents. So you have their sick bays having 1 or 2 things there to help treat sick people. But apart from that, there's nothing that works in our health. So in terms of school health system, we have not done well at all. In terms of allowing students to use Wi-Fi technology in our schools, we were able to institute some of these digital infrastructure in some of the schools. But as at the last time that we checked, and you can check from various works that have been done in that area, most of them are not working. They are not working. I'm told that, about 70 to 80% of those Wi-Fi that were spread across the colleges of education and were supposed to be even in some of the senior secondary schools are not working. I don't know. And of course,
that also brings to mind then when there are the promises now that we're hearing of laptops that will be distributed, among others. I don't know what your reaction is to that.
Yeah, for the laptops and the tablets, I think that one of the things that we don't do well in this country is to roll out policy documents so that those of us in the sector would read, understand, and appreciate the rationale behind the distribution, the modalities, and all those things. We don't have any paper to that effect. All that we've heard is that students are going to be given laptops going forward or tablets with the textbooks on it. If it's about cost of printing textbooks and because of that I want to do the laptop, that is fine.
We seem to have momentarily lost Dr. Peter and All right, Doc, we lost you for about 5 seconds. Just go back and...
All right. If it's about textbooks that you can't print, you do that,
Okay, we're struggling with Dr. Peter Anti as far as that connection is concerned. We'll try to get the connection back up. These usually are connectivity issues. So as we try to circle back to him, let's head to Kumasi in the Ashanti region. And Nanabwache Yadom is actually standing by there to engage. It's our citizens' microphone. What do they think? What are they expecting from the SONA? Nanabwache Yadom.
Be speaking to Parliament, addressing the nation on the state, the social and economic state of our country. Today we took to the streets of Kumasi to engage some residents on the current state of the country and the expectations from President Akufo Addo, as he's expected to be before Parliament today to address the country on our state, our economic and social state of the country. And so we'll be interacting with some people we have here with us on their expectations from the president as he is expected to address us at 10 a.m. this morning before Parliament. I have this gentleman here with me. I don't know if you've been monitoring the president, especially when it comes to delivering the State of the Nation's address. Today, does it look like something exceptional for you?
Yeah, I think I've watched last year's and previous years too as well. Today, I expect it to be exceptional because where we are right now, the country state, it is something that the highest expectation of Ghanaians would be that the president should come in and then state the measures that he has in place or his government has in place. Some of the pressing issues that have been happening in the country, looking at the economic recovery issues, inflation, how to provide measures to have higher domestic revenue generation, and also measures as to how we are going to cope in the next years as far as finance is concerned. And aside that, so I think one of the expectations that we are all looking forward to is the president should come and tell us, to at least give us a progress report of some of the things that he said. Last year or last 2 years, there was a conversation around the year of roads and all, and the road minister said last year that this year was going to be the year for all roads to be completed. So infrastructure-wise, we are also looking forward to the government to come in and tell us the progress so far. In terms of health and education, we all know the Agenda 111. And we are just looking forward that this particular address should be one that will give us progress reports of how far those constructions have been, how the progress has been so far. And education-wise, I mean, that's the pressing issue that everyone will be concerned about. So the free SHS, what's the progress? Has there been any review? The year ahead, what is the government going to do? Those are some of the things that we are looking forward to hear. You know, over the years, we've seen how some of these speeches are structured, mostly to score political points and all that. But then I think this year being election year and one of the years that the economy is hard, what we expect the president to come and talk about is measures that he's having to keep some of the pressing issues that we are facing.
Let's look at being an election year and also a crucial one for the government itself and the ruling party. What are some of the things that you think government could do to ensure we have a stable economy, especially in this pressing election year?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I mentioned was the economy. I mean, as we speak right now, apart from last year's inflation rate that was very high, as at now we have 23.5 or so, which I think is a progress. But then election year, you need to impress the people. You need to tell the people that we've been able to do this and that. But most importantly, you need to tell the people how we are going to solve the problem at hand, what we are facing now. So most of the things should be focused on the economy, because I believe that the major indicators has to do with inflation rates, the GDP, and then also our debt structuring, which I believe if the president gives a proper measure as to how these things are going to be worked on, it will be an applause for him. And then coming into the election year or the election month too will be something for his government also, yeah.
Well, being it an election year, Ghanaians are definitely expecting a whole lot from President Akufo Addo, as he's expected to address the country on our state, the current state of this country, be it an election year. And so the expectations of this gentleman we spoke to not long ago, and so let me get to him. Are you expecting the president to impress you today, and how?
Well, from my perspective, I think the state of the nation's address is a constitutional requirement, and I see it's the president just fulfilling a constitutional requirement as mandated by Article 67. Yes, it's state of the nation's address. We expect, as my brother said, progress report. The president, when vying for office in his first term, came up with some flagship policies. We expect to see the progress report on those policies, like the free SHS, 1 district, 1 dam, 1 district, 1 factory, and those stuff. We expect to see how far things are. And then the president in his 2022 State of the Nation's address made mention of Agenda 111, that is building 111 hospitals. And he gave a timeline that by January 2025, these things should be ready. How far are they? Like how advanced have the constructions gone? We need to see these things. As per the Ghana Statistics Service, as at the first 3 quarters of 2023, unemployment rate was at 14.3%. We need to see how far with NAPCO, the U-Start, what are the measures the president has put in place to alleviate some of these challenges that Ghanaians are facing when it comes to unemployment? Because we always hear the vice president saying they've created about 2 million jobs, but then how is it impacting the life of Ghanaians? Ghanaians need to see that this is the president we voted for. Aside he fulfilling the constitutional mandate by giving us the State of the Nation's address, how practical are some of these things? Because yes, you talk, Ghanaians will listen, but then how practical are some of these things that you talk? We heard about gold for oil, and the president said it was supposed to tackle 2 issues. That is stabilize the foreign reserve and then stabilize the price of fuel. How far are they? Did they achieve the purpose for which it was implemented? So these are some of the things Ghanaians want to know when it comes to the president delivering the State of the Nation's address today.
But just as I asked this gentleman here with me, it is a pressing year for the government and the ruling party. They are seeking to break the 8, and so definitely would want to hear something that is going to trigger us to go out and vote. Do you think that after today's speech, hearing whatsoever from the president, you would be definitely convinced to go and cast your vote for the party or otherwise?
Well, I am not swayed by words. I'm someone that is swayed by actions. So it's not like what you are going to tell me. It's about based on your track record, your credibility. Because this is not the first State of the Nation's address. There's been so many State of the Nation's address. What were the things, the major issues that came out of these State of the Nation's address? What were the promises that were made? Were they able to be fulfilled? If the president was able to fulfill all these things, and I'm feeling the impact in my life, automatically I'm going to vote for him. But then if I'm pressed, if economically I'm pressed, and then you come to tell me, or you come to deliver a speech that aligns with my thoughts, and then you expect me to vote for you based on that speech, it is not going to happen. So we need to see something practical.
All right. And so Ghanaians are expecting the president to bring out something practical to ensure that it does convince them to participate in the 2024 December 7th general election. But definitely we'll still have to hear from some other Ghanaians who are yet to, just generally all of us are yet to hear from the president. So as we are yet to hear from the president, their expectations and then what we are to generally expect in the State of the Nation's address by the president as we head to the December 7th general elections. And so what are your expectations when it comes to the State of the Nation's address, which will be delivered by the president by 10 a.m. today?
Well, seriously, I don't expect anything. Actually, Ghanaians, the president don't have to talk to Ghanaians on the state of the nation. I think that Ghanaians, as we live in the country, we know our state already. We don't really need the president to tell us our state. Just that Article 67 demands that the president should be in parliament to address a fine. But for us Ghanaians on the streets, we know the state of Ghana already. So we are not really expecting any much from the president.
What is the state of Ghana?
The state of Ghana is that the economy is broke. And we don't need a president to tell us that. We all know the economy is broken, right? Then, I think that going forward, it's just unfortunate that politicians always have to take advantage of us and play with our minds. So after today, you hear tomorrow the opposition will go through State of the Nation's address. So they are always playing with us. They are not ready to help us. That's all that I can say.
But you definitely would want the government, the president, to address something, wouldn't you?
Yes, we are.
What are some of the things you would want him to touch on?
The hardship in the country. Ghanaians are facing hardship when it comes to the economy. Business are collapsing. The youth unemployment is rising high. You just saw, we are all seeing the current report from the Ghana Statistical Service, and it's all there for us to see. So I don't know, but I think that something should be done. We need leaders who are ready to address the issues of Ghanaians. We are tired of the book long everyday speeches here and there. I think what the president should be doing, since it's an election year, is to consolidate his gains. As simple as that. If you've been able to institute free SHS, can we look at that? If you are doing one district, one factory, can we look at that? Then probably coming to tell us new things or something. I don't know what they are calling now, the reshuffle that he has done. Some are calling the ministers injury ministers, injury time ministers, and a whole lot. I don't see anything coming out of any of this.
Well, that is an interesting point of view from the gentleman we just spoke with, and he is not really expecting much from the president as he heads to Parliament today. But then, your perspective on the president's State of the Nation's address today?
All right, so this will be President Akufo Addo's last State of the Nation's address, and as a way of accounting to Ghanaians for his leadership in the last 4 years, or even to go back to the last 8 years. I am expecting him to tell us where he picked us from, where he picked the country from. When he came in, he came with policies like the free SHS, one district, one factory, one village, one dam. Which one village, one dam, I'm not seeing the progress of it personally. So I expect the president to give us a clear view of where he picked the country and where he has taken us to, and where he sees taking us to at the end. I mean, the last few months that he has. I expect him to be able to talk about, bring policies, even though we have very short months to end his tenure. I expect that he comes out with some policies that are going to cushion our economy. If you check the last year and some few months ago, you could see that we had a very high inflation rate. And since the inception of our IMF bailouts, we have seen some stabilization. I'm not saying it is better because years back we had a very good inflation rate as compared to the current one. But if you check, compare what we have now to some months ago, you could see we have made some progress. So what are the ways the president is planning to fast track things so that we'll have the third tranche of our IMF bailout funds released so that it can help our economy better? I'm not expecting any new tax because Ghanaians are already suffering. To be frank, things are not good as we compare to the olden days. So I'm not expecting any new tax. There's this emission levy tax which was called off for further consultation. I am hoping that the president will not come and tell us that they are bringing it back, because personally, and then as an environmentalist, I'm not seeing the progress that we've made with the taxes that we have based on our environmental aspects. We had the 1% levy on waste management. What have we achieved with that? Because we're already paying tax for waste on the side of waste. So if we've not seen any progress on that, I'm not expecting him to burden Ghanaians with more taxes as well. And as a forester, in 2020, President Akufo said in the State of Nations address that he's putting down plans and policies to ensure that we stop destroying our water bodies, our forests from Galamsey. And then he said that there were this issue of missing excavators, and he said it point blank at Parliament that we are going to tackle that issue, and people that were found to be culprits were going to be punished. Just that now we don't know how far that has gone. So as an environmentalist and a forester, I expect the president to come out give us an account of how far he has taken our Galamsey fights to and what he intends to do in these last few days. These are some of the things that I'm expecting from the president.
All right, so interesting perspectives from some Ghanaians we have interacted with ahead of the State of the Nation's address, which will be delivered by the president. It is a constitutional requirement. Article 67 requires that the president will be before Parliament to present the State of the Nation. And so we are going to hear from the president himself. What is the state of our country, our economic status, our financial status, and the social status of the country? Everything will be heard from President Akufo Addo this morning. And so these are the expectations of some Ghanaians we interacted with here in Kumasi. And so they are expecting the president to definitely touch on some crucial matters concerning Ghanaians and other interesting aspects of our lives, which must be also addressed ahead of the crucial 2024 general elections. My name is Nana Boache Dankwa Yadom. Over to you.
Well, thank you very much. That was Nana Boache Dankwa Yadom bringing us the scoop from Kumasi. Interesting thoughts shared. One of them saying, we know the state of the nation already. We don't need any politician to come and tell us. But those were his sentiments, among others. Very articulate, and they put the issues on the front burner. Let me come back. Dr. Peter Anti, you were making a point about the laptops and a few other policies that sometimes are not put out there in policy documents so that you can assess them. Let's dwell briefly on that and look at other core issues like feeding for students at the basic level, school feeding program and where it is, and then you can even extend it to the senior high school level, free SHS, and then the constraints in there. You now have students, so cocoa, this or the and then the broad, your own sugar, your own bread, stuff like that. A lack of beds and all that. What are your expectations on all these?
Yeah, so as I was saying, I think that we need a policy document on the laptops that are supposed to be shared to the students. I think that is what ideally needs to be done, so that people would understand the rationale, do cost-benefit analysis and all those things to agree with the government and help shape that particular policy. So that it wouldn't be, this is not the first time we are sharing laptops to students. We did that, I think, during 2011, 2012. Coming back from ban reduce, one student, one laptop policy, thereabouts. So we, from 2008, 2009, 10, 11, 12, we've been sharing laptops, and those things, they don't last because we don't go through the rigorous process of policy formulation, policy reshaping to be able to get the benefit out of whatever we want to do. And we will be doing back and forth with some of these things. So we would wish that we have a clear direction on that for maybe other people to, subsequent authorities to also follow suit. For the feeding issue, school feeding has been a challenge. I think that one of the things for me, I think this year the president need to do or would have to do is to try to firm up most of the things that he's introduced, especially with the free senior high school. I think that the best legacy to leave is to give a clear direction as to how sustainable this policy is going to be. If you are not careful, or if he's not careful and he leaves, and the next thing you hear is different issues with the policy, you have not been successful. So I think one of the things he needs to do is to sit down, think through the policy, and find a clear pathway to ensure that this policy is sustainable and would be beneficial to generations to come. Quick
question. Every Ghanaians in general, I want free SHS to stay. I'm not even personally benefiting from it, but maybe some relative or someone is benefiting. It's a good thing. But do you think enough has been done by this administration to guarantee that when it is gone, free SHS, whether financially or otherwise, can stand the test of time?
Unfortunately, no, because you see, the point is that they have told us that if they leave, the policy will collapse. And I don't think that is good for the country, because I think that policies are made for the people and not specifically to satisfy any political group of people. So if they are hinging their political fortunes on the free senior high school, then it is very, very unfortunate. As at now, you might have, or you should benefit from the political angle, but there should be a new focus as to how do we sustain this policy. And when you get to talk about the sustainability issue, you know that the government have not been forthcoming with how they think that this policy can be sustained. It's all about let me be there and I will ensure that your children enjoy free senior high school. What is the way forward? Let me be there and I will ensure that free senior high school continues. I think going forward, one of the discussions that the media people will need to push, especially Ben, is to ask the presidential candidates to let us understand what is their way forward for the free senior high school. Of course, the vice president have let us understand that he is pursuing a new vision. He said he would want to improve the free senior high school. What is the way forward? How are we going to sustain it? The former president have said that he is going to review the free senior high school. What kind of review is he thinking about? Is he thinking about reviewing the financial model? Is he thinking about reviewing the operational aspects of the policy? Let us be clear. They should let us understand clearly the focus and the future of this all-important policy that every child in the country is going to benefit from.
Quick question. I have a quick question for you. It just came to mind. Do you think we've got to the point where maybe we may have to pause, and I say this very cautiously, because there are policies sometimes across the world where to make it better, you have to pause and then institute everything seamlessly and then start again? Or should we go ahead with it while we try to tweak it? What do you think?
I think I'll go for the second one. We should continue with this and then we tweak it. And that is why we need to come round the table and look at what you've done so far. You've done 7 years of this policy. You have not opened up for people to sit down and then do a critical assessment of the policy. Those who try to do it, you are tagging them as anti-free senior high school. You are tagging them as opposition members. You are tagging them as naysayers. How do you expect the policy to improve? So that is where the problem is. We really need to sit down and think through it. And it is clear, it is more of where the money is coming from. And it has been established that anytime the government faces fiscal challenges, monies to these schools are not going. How do you deal with that? That is why most people are saying there should be another source of funding. You should be coming out with, let's say, 40-60% from the government, from revenue, from the oil fund and all those things, 60%. There should be a 40% that is coming from somewhere that will support, so that when the government is having financial challenges, that 40% will hold the policy so the government gets, like we do with the tertiary institutions, the universities. You know that sometimes the subventions delay, but the institutions are able to pay their workers. How are they able to do that? They do that through their IGS. So when the subvention comes, they just put the money back there. That is what we are saying scheme should be done for the free senior high school so that somebody in a prestigious school like Wesley Girls will not go and be sleeping on the floor, will not be sitting on plastic chairs in the classroom. There will not be congestion in our schools, so that our children will have that kind of psychological mindset to study and grow up and develop in a way that we want them to develop. If anybody requests for this and you think that that person is an opposition member or a naysayer, then I think that you don't mean well for the policy.
Right. Hold for me, Dr. Anti. I know you have to go, but hold for me. Let me circle back to you. Hold for me, Dr. Ayamga. I've not forgotten about what you were going to talk about. But let me also bring into the conversation Charles Nyaba. He's Executive Director, Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. Mr. Nyaba, thank you for joining the conversation. I'd like to go straight for the jugular. When it comes to agriculture, how have we fared? What are your expectations? What do you hope to hear from the SONA? You'd have to unmute, Mr. Nyaba. So we'll be engaging Charles Nyaba. He's Executive Director, Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. Once we can hear him, we'll pick his thoughts on those questions I asked. But like I mentioned to you, we're going to be looking at all crucial aspects of our economy, the economy itself and the different strands, agriculture now. Mr. Nyaba, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you clear.
Did you get the question?
Yes, please.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Let me say good morning to your good self and my co-panelists. As you indicated, agriculture is crucial, especially around this time that the economy is almost at the verge of crash. I say that because if you observe for the past 2 weeks now, you realize that the cedi has started its free flow again. Every day we get up and then we hear depreciation of the cedi. Meanwhile, along the line, there was a bit of stability, which I would attribute to good performance of the agriculture sector after the resignation of the former agric minister and taken over by the new minister, who is a bit considerate and then communicate well with farmers. So when you look at the later part of
Hello, Mr. Nyaba. All right, it appears we've...
2020, because when the new minister came to office, even though there hasn't been any investment on farmers, if I say investment after the suspension of a PFA, Planting for Food and Jobs Phase 1, and with the introduction of Planting for Food and Jobs Phase 2, farmers were to benefit through aggregator system that was introduced. But the whole of 2023, that didn't happen. Now, we still went ahead, farmers went ahead, mobilized their own resources, increased investment, procured their own inputs. So you go to most of the farming growing areas and you realize that we have a lot of foodstuffs that farmers are struggling to sell. You go to most of the rice growing areas, farmers have a lot of rice, they can't sell. Maize, farmers have a lot of maize, they can't sell. We still have soya beans, we have yam. This is because after the new intervention came, that is Planting for Food and Jobs Phase 2, even though farmers didn't get support from government, by then they were not deceived to also wait and get inputs which were of inferior quality, leading to low yields. So that has helped a bit. Now, what we were expecting the government to do is to ensure that this produce, which are in abundance at the community level that farmers cannot sell, we go in there and mop them up and store them, because very soon prices will skyrocket again. Then you release them into the market. As we speak, Nigeria are in food crisis. And I just pick information from most of our food grain areas, especially the border towns. The Nigeria traders are in to come and mop what we have. The crisis in Burkina Faso, they have already closed their borders. Yet they allow traders who go to outside those areas to buy produce to bring them in. But their commodities cannot go out. What are we doing as a country to ensure that we protect little that we have? We haven't seen any government policy on that. So I expect that as we are going to hear the president read the SONA, we want to hear interventions that will protect farmers, that will provide farmers market. And then we also want to hear what kind of investment farmers will expect as we are preparing for the 2024 farming season. Next month, we will start clearing our lands, some areas will start planting. We want to hear what is there on the replanting for food and job phase 2. Will we expect to still get inputs as subsidies? The reason why we see the Ghanaian farmers non-competitive is that, look, we just allow the farmers to do their own thing. Then we expect them to compete with countries where they subsidize their farmers. In other countries, they take loans with interest rate of less than 5%. We go to bank, take interest rate of over 30%. So if I put my product on the market and then somebody from Thailand who is taking interest rate of almost 0%, putting the same commodity on the market, how can we sell at the same price? Okay, so we expect to see interventions in those areas. And where can those interventions go? You go into mechanization services, go into subsidizing inputs, go into creating more irrigation facility to ensure that we produce all year round. These are the things that we expect to hear from the government.
My final bit to you, at least for this, at this point of the conversation, our major cash crop, cocoa, we cannot talk about a State of the Nation address and talk about agriculture without mentioning cocoa. You would realize that there are serious problems. And many of our trees, because of the lack of systemic controls, like you've said, many of our trees have been around for decades. They are old. The yield levels are low. And we also have to deal with smuggling and everything in between. Now we hear year on year. Last year, the productivity levels, if you compare 2023 to 2024, it has declined by about 27.9%, moving from 683,000 metric tons to 492,000 metric tons. And this is a great cause for worry. As far as cocoa, our major cash crop, is concerned, what will be your reflections?
Yeah, so actually we saw this coming. I think last year I did discuss this, that we don't expect any major reforms in the cocoa yields, and we rather expect yields to decline. And it's simply because majority of cocoa farmers prefer to release their lands for galamsey activities than to allow the cocoa trees. Some of them voluntarily sold their cocoa farms for galamseys. Others were forcefully taken by sub-chiefs and community leaders. Look, I have a farmer who said he was there before he realized he was given some amount, that his farm has been sold, and this is the proceeds they got. So they want to give him this amount to go and find a new area to produce. What are we doing about galamsey? You go to most of the cocoa growing areas, and the farms are virtually gone. That is one. In the past, we used to benefit from free cocoa fertilizer, pesticides, and weedicides. Now those things are not there again. And if you take a crop like cocoa, if you know how farmers labor, by the end of the day, they don't really make any profit. Okay? So if government don't intervene to actually support these farmers, there's no way they are going to increase their yield. So any realistic or profit-minded farmer will prefer to actually sell the cocoa farm for galamsey activities than to continue to do that. Look, who are those who benefit from cocoa proceeds? Anybody who had opportunity to work cocoa board, they are there, they don't really do any serious work. But by the end of the day, go and see the allowances and the salaries that they receive. We will get, when there is increase in world price of cocoa, the percentage that goes to the farmers is less than 50%. So why wouldn't they smuggle? If I can take my cocoa to Cote d'Ivoire and I'll get almost 50% price higher than what I'm getting in Ghana, why wouldn't I take it there? So our poor performance of cocoa, of the cocoa sector, is partly due to negligence from government, focusing on the low-hanging fruits. We want the proceeds of cocoa, yet we don't want to increase investment in cocoa. And we are allowing galamsey to actually kill the sector. So I think I would rather call for all of us, including your good self, to see the decline in cocoa performance in recent times to negligence of government investing in cocoa farming, especially allowing galamsey people to go and take cocoa lands for galamsey activities.
Thank you. Hold for me, Mr. Nyaba. Let me bring back Dr. Ayamga, and I'm so glad you've been so patient with us holding on. I'm just looking at the latest when it comes to our e-levy, for example. Everyone is feeling the pinch of that. Collections, as far as 2023 are concerned, 1.19 billion. it's shot up. It's doing better than initially when it was barely raking in about 450 million. But before I left to have an interaction or moved on to have an interaction with Dr. Anti, I had put before you the economy, considering inflation, taxes, the exchange rate, interest rates, cost of utilities, cost of doing business. This potpourri, what do you make of it? What are your expectations in the SONA ahead of 2025?
Yes, Ben, as I indicated, being an economist in Ghana now is very easy because even some of my undergraduate students can tell you the state of Ghana better than the president would do because they feel it, as one of your discussants mentioned in the interview. You don't need to do any analysis to know what is happening to inflation, unemployment, growth, and so on. And that is what has been the worrying trend here. I was just looking at, for example, what do we say, our city. When we hit the IMF deal, our expectation was that it would trigger some sell-off by speculators. It will force them to change the profile of their stocks and begin to decrease the demand for foreign currency. But it just marginally reduced it for a short while, stabilized it for a short while, and the city has started falling again. That tells us that the benefits we are expecting to reap from the IMF program are not going to be realized because the trends in most of these indicators are going the opposite direction. You take inflation, for example.
But they've been moving in the right direction for a while. So, and we've had a stimulus package. We've had 2 batches of about 600 million. We expect some other money from the World Bank and some other support. Are you just saying that all of this has meant nothing? It's gone down the drain?
Exactly. You see, when you are a statistician or you are dealing with numbers, trends are very important. And consistency in the trend is normally an indicator that we have actually turned the corner. Not the momentary impact of a stimulus, where people just do a knee-jerk reaction and then we observe and realize that, okay, this thing is not going to be sustainable. So the old trend, when you have that situation, you know that your solutions are not working. And that is the case here with the stimulus we are getting from the IMF, that when we hit the deal, you saw that the city stabilized and at least appreciated marginally. After that, it has started declining, as my brother Dr. Ayaba said. If you look at inflation, when we hit this, it started decreasing. That is because we are also in the harvest season, and the food basket, the price of the food basket has been declining. But now, if you look at it, it's stabilized for a while. Inflation has started increasing again. You don't need to talk about our growth because while many are projecting 4%, secondary analysis is showing that we are not going to go up to 3%. And that is a problem. That means that since 2016, we have never been able to manage the 3-point growth that we experienced. And if we are doing worse than then it means that we are not also making progress. There is something we do in this country that we don't do things within policy framework. We like the bits and pieces, and then we try to introduce projects rather than some consistent economic plan. As Dr. Anche rightly said, what, for example, is the distribution of a laptop going to solve? What problem is it solving? How do we plan this? It just came out of a knee-jerk reaction, and hey, we are in and we are doing it. So this is the key challenge we are having to deal with. I also still feel strongly that because we did not outline a clear path in terms of how we were going to manage the receipts from the IMF program, they were left to the capacities of the finance minister. And when they came, some select contractors were paid, some select projects were financed, and others had to just look on. So the lack of a consistent plan to follow is what has ensured that we have not been able to maximize the potential benefit from the program as we speak. And I don't want to mince words that we are facing very serious economic challenges as of now. And the IMF program seems not to be helping us. Yes, we have achieved some momentary stabilization, but going forward, how do we proceed with that? The question is, what next? Is there any consistent growth? Is there any consistent appreciation of the city? Is there any consistent stabilization of our reserves? All these questions are left in the whims and caprices of whosoever is dealing with the data. And the president is going to come into parliament today and tell us that they have turned the corner, they have stabilized the economy, and despite Ukraine and Russia, things are looking good. But as you rightly point, you look at Togo, you look at Cote d'Ivoire, you look at Senegal, and all these people who are also under the impact of the Russia and Ukraine war are doing better than us. There is no way you can turn this and blame it on
even Libya, that has had its crises, not just one crisis, crises post Muammar Gaddafi. Even Libya is projecting 7.9%. That is a projection as far as the IMF is concerned. Libya.
So an opportunity for the president to come and give an excuse, shift blames, and then tell us something that is on paper, but it's not actually being implemented in practice. I am hoping that there will be some very courageous MPs and fact checkers who hold the president to the standard today. But I think that it is a constitutional mandate he's going to fulfill, and he's going to give us a shift blame, point fingers away from himself, which is rather unfortunate.
Right.
Don't need to miss words. Yeah.
Hold for me. Let me bring in Professor Lord Mensah. He is with the University of Ghana Business School. Prof, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. And good morning to our viewers, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. It appears today I've donned my chichi. That looks like yours. Chichi, you know, spectacles. And it's always good to have you. So here's what I am going to throw to you. What for you will be a realistic SONA by way of the economy, where realistic means a true picture rather than a picture based on political tinctures? In other words, don't use any spectacles. What is the reality on the ground? Your take.
Right. So we were expecting certain indicators. And when we talk about economic, growth, and it does not transcend into economic development, then the growth is just numbers that we can tout out there and be throwing them in the air. Let me put it that way. Because it is expected that once the economy starts growing, that growth will transcend into the people's life, i.e. creating more jobs, and then also opening up businesses here and there. But that is not what we're seeing. A true lens of this economy is an economy that I always say has been hijacked by the government. And we had the opportunity somewhere 2019, to keep a certain trajectory where the economy will be transferred to the business and individual. But we didn't keep to that trajectory. The reason why we did not keep to this trajectory is that when we found ourselves with the IMF, I'm talking about the 2018 IMF that went, you realize that the indicators were looking good. Our budget deficit was heading towards the 6%, almost moving to the 5% that the IMF prescribed for us. And then also interest rates were coming down. Inflation was coming down at the time. Looking at all this, we seem heading towards a certain direction. But at the end of the day, we thought, okay, being under IMF was a problem. And so quickly, the finance minister, the IMF program ended. And when it ended, it's like, we have to celebrate an end to an IMF program.
Do you feel, quick question on that, I'm sorry to interject, do you feel we rushed out of an IMF program in the sense that it would have ended at a point, but do you feel we are always eager to get out when we are not even ready to do the right things? Do you get a sense of that?
Yes, if you look at the attitude, the position of the policymakers at the time, it was even a campaign promise that we have to get out of IMF. It was IMF that is restricting our spending. which for me, it was a misnomer, because at the end of the day, you know, it was under the IMF that we're experiencing certain, you know, economic, indicators that is pushing the economy to a direction that will be good for all of us. We came out from the IMF, you know, the budget deficit that was around 6%. The first time we exited the IMF, when we read the budget, we created a budget deficit of about 11%, which gives room for more borrowing. Borrowing 50% from the domestic market and then borrowing 50% from the international market. That kept interest rates high. And it brought the interest rate to a level where we couldn't carry. And as a result of that, had to go through this debt restructuring and all those. And then also being priced out from the, you know, international market. So from where I sit, I think, you know, the actual, you know, situation on the ground is that the Ghanaian economy is an economy that has been hijacked by the government all this while. It's government that has been doing business. Businesses are not in business. Individuals are not in business. And as a result of that, you know, the economic indicators are so high. Look at interest rate, so high. Talking about inflation, so high. Nigeria just went on to inflation of about, you know, 30%. And they are on the street. We went to somewhere 54%. And let me put these numbers out there. If you supposed to buy an item, that was 100 cedis last year, and inflation build-up is 54%. That is more than half of the price added. So 100 cedis will be around 150. If inflation reduced to about 30%, 30% of that 150 is approximately 50 Ghana cedis. And so add that 50 Ghana cedis to the 150. That is about, you know, that's about 200 cedis. So the 100 cedis is now, you know, 200 cedis. An item worth of 100 cedis is now 200 cedis. So just these two numbers, together with the 20% or the 24% that we've been recording recently, then it means you are going way above, you know, what the pocket can hold. We're talking about inflation here. So from where I sit, I think, you know, the actual, you know, state of the economy is an economy where Ghanaians' disposable income has been reduced drastically. Now, when you receive your salary, right, the purchasing power of your salary has been reduced, you know, to a point where food alone is taking about 60% of your salary. So effectively, that is supposed to be the true state of the Ghanaian economy. But, I mean, what are we expecting from the president? We're going to get strings of words together, and these words are going to indicate, oh, we've done well, we've been able to negotiate on our, you know, external bilateral, you know, debt. We've been able to, we are in negotiation with the commercial creditors, and these are all achievements that Ghanaians should praise. No, that is not supposed to be the case. The economy has been running for the past 7 years. This is the time that we're supposed to realize what Ghanaians were promised. Right. So we can measure you, the president, to be the difference between what you promised us some years back and then what is being felt now. Right. That difference, the bigger it is, the more it shows that you did not perform. And I can tell you that.
So by way of deduction, we could actually look at his first SONA, second SONA in between, and look at what has been done up to the seventh SONA, and look in between.
Put them together. I mean, you will see the variations, a huge difference, and that difference tells you that the economy is not doing well as expected.
Very quickly, Prof, two quick things. I want you to look at them very briefly. Ghana, when you look at projected growth, we are far behind. Even the 4% projection, Dr. Ayamga says we may not even hit 3%. But you look at countries like Niger, you know, and I put it in context because it's a coup-led nation, 11.2%. Libya, after Muammar Gaddafi, 7.9%. We have countries like Cote d'Ivoire, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Benin, Tanzania, even Djibouti, projected to grow better than we do. We often sometimes look at Togo and say, oh, Togo. Togo is having a 6% projection of growth, and we are looking at 4%, and some say even that will not make. Then there is the issue of Ken Ofori-Atta, now confirmed appointment as Senior Presidential Advisor and Special Envoy for International Finance and Private Sector Investments. Your quick reflections on these two matters.
Yeah, on the issue of the growth. You see, the Ghanaian economy now is in distress. And every economy that is in debt distress, your growth is very slow. In some cases, I try to relate the sources of financing that is available to the government and the kind of expenditure that the government can make. I mean, clearly, when the government spends in Ghana as we speak, that is when we realize the growth, because the economy has been concentrated in government spending. I mean, when we talk about GDP, we are looking at government spending, we're talking about business spending and individual level, spending. But as we speak now, it's government spending that it takes our growth. Country is in distress, government cannot spend its way as expected. And we are restricted to read a budget that will have a deficit pointing towards the 5% or to some extent 0% as prescribed by the IMF program. So under the IMF program, you can grow, but you cannot grow all out as as compared to if you are not under the IMF, program. And then you see in financing some of the capex roads and other things that are ongoing in the country. But this is a government that is borrowing on short-term. That is the only financing sources that we can be sure of as we speak now. If you talk about export, there are some uncertainties as far as the commodity market is concerned. But the borrowing in the domestic market has even been limited to, short-term, up to 1 year. And so you ask yourself, all these projects that are ongoing, does it make sense? And I know very well I can compare our situation with that of Greece. When Greece went down, into debt distress, it affected infrastructural development clearly. And it was on the ground. I mean, you can feel it on the street that the government is struggling to pay its debt. And as a result of that, long-term investment must get halted for some time. But what do we see? We see government on one hand going out to provide roads and other things. The question Ghanaians must ask now is that what is the financing sources of this project? I understand some of them are, World Bank and IMF project, African Development Bank project and other things. That has been earmarked already. And so, the funds are sitting there, waiting for the project to be executed. That's different. But I'm talking about other things that will feed into the government capex in the 2024 budget that was read. Right. We have to be careful as a country and ask questions. So from where I sit, those growth, that Niger and all those are propagating, the difference is that Ghana is in debt distress. And if a country is in debt distress, you cannot grow, as a country that is not in debt distress. And then the issue of the finance minister that has been appointed, as a shadow finance minister who is going to supervise, the current finance minister. For me, I think... But
that's not the role that has been designated to him. It doesn't say anywhere that he's going to be a shadow finance minister supervising Dr. Amin.
That is my language. Because where he's going to sit, he's going to take care of international negotiations. And I know the president may have certain kind of, background, each situation. That is why he will, position him that way. Because him being the face that you've been using for our debt negotiations and things, I think he wants to place him there to continue. But that is, uncalled for. Our creditors understand that the country is Ghana that owes, not Kenoforiata that owes. That is what we need to appreciate. So if because of the international, debt that is placing Ken in that position, I don't think, we need that position as a country now, because it's going to add up to a cost. You can even place him, as a consultant, as and when you need him, you call him. But even that one, I don't think anybody will hire a consultant that has driven the economy in a certain direction, and you still want to keep that consultant on board. So from where I sit, I think that position is not called for. Our creditors know that they are negotiating with Ghana. And whichever face that will represent Ghana on the international market, I mean, that person should be accepted. And again, it's an administration. We deal with documents. And so we expect that at least whoever takes over as finance minister will be in tune. And we are fortunate it's even the deputy finance minister. So unless, I mean, they tell me that the deputy finance minister wasn't in tune, whatever was happening in the country as well with, our external creditors is concerned. So I think, that position, we don't need it now as we speak.
All right. Interesting thoughts. It's interesting as well to know that Kwame Pianim, who is on the economic team of Dr. Bawumia as an advisor, before this became public, had mentioned to me that it would be a terrible move to appoint Ken Ofori-Atta in the way that we've appointed him, and asking the question, we don't have an economy, so what is he going to advise on? But gentlemen, we have just about 4 minutes to wrap the conversation. I want to be fair, give each of you a bite. I'll start with you, Dr. Anti, if you're still with us. 1 minute. What do you want to hear from the president? What are your expectations? 1 minute, and then we go. 1 minute to each of you, starting with Dr. Anti. It appears we just lost Dr. Peter Anti, unfortunate. Let me go to Charles Nyaba. What will be your parting words for us?
Yeah, so we all agree that agriculture sector is the foundation to strong economy. Because with a strong performance of the agriculture sector, you see that the various economic indicators will point positive. Yet we haven't seen any radical investment in the agriculture sector in the past few years. So as a farmer, as we prepare for the season, we expect to hear the government taking a new leaf on the agriculture sector, especially through the PFJ Phase 2, to tell farmers how we are going to invest in input subsidies, how we are going to invest in mechanization services. Government plans to address the issue of climate change through creation of irrigation facilities to support off-season farming, and how we are going to mop up the excess rice, maize, and soya beans that the farmers are currently struggling to sell so that they'll be able to go into the new season. That's what we expect to hear.
All right. Charles Nyaba, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Let me go to Dr. Ayamga. Your parting words before I circle back to Professor Mensah. Dr. Ayamga?
Thank you. I think Senior colleague of Lord Mensah took the words out of my mouth. I think that the government ought to give the economy its actors, allow industries to lead growth, to lead the spending. Government is too powerful, and in an election year, I'm afraid it is going to send the resources to places that anchor is electoral fortunes rather than stimulate economic growth. I want to see the president being more concerned about his legacy rather than trying to see whether he can secure another term for his party. I believe that if he wants us to remember him as a president, for now, it doesn't look good for his legacy. He should be more concerned about that. He has just a few months to make the name President Akufo worth mentioning in the future. And I want him to concentrate on that. Tell Ghanaians the truth, and then begin to force government to spend in areas that will stimulate economic growth and allow industries to grow.
Thank you, Dr. Ayamga. Let me take Professor Mensah. Professor Lord Mensah, 1 minute.
Yes, so I'm not expecting anything different. The SONA has already been written, and it's going to be the usual posture. That sequencing of, where that portrays, things are going well. Of course, we appreciate that government has its own achievement that he thinks, he's doing well. Those things are going to be expatiated in this document that we're going to listen to, from the president. And, having that, it's a normal thing that, this government has been doing. But, the government needs to appreciate that there are good achievements and the bad achievement, holistically determines what Ghanaians feel. And so if you are going to give a statement and you end up, parading the good things, forgetting about the negative, things that are outweighing the positives, then obviously, I mean, you may not be communicating to Ghanaians as expected. But then, from where I sit, that SONA has been written. There's going to be a sequence of, government achievement. And a typical example will be, our bilateral negotiations that, we ended recently, which the government will, put to Ghanaians that, look, we've done well having this negotiation. But the question is, how did we get here? How did we get here? And even if you've had, that negotiation gone through, is an achievement that will put food in the Ghanaians' pocket? Would it bring inflation down immediately before the end of the year? Those are the things, we may have to look at. But from what I say, it's going to be the usual string of words that portrays, government positives without looking at, the negatives. And Ghanaians may not be happy hearing that again.
Thank you, Professor Mensah. If we have Dr. Peter Anti, we'll give him his minute, and if not, we'll wrap it here. All right. So thank you, gentlemen. Those who joined the conversation this morning, Charles Nyaba, Executive Director, Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. We also had Professor Lord Mensah of the University of Ghana Business School joining the conversation. Dr. Peter Anti is with the Institute for Education Studies. He joined the conversation. We had Dr. Michael Ayamga, who is with the University for Development Studies. So stay with us. Of course, from around 10 o'clock. And I say around 10 o'clock because usually the SONA doesn't start when we expect that it will start. But we'll be here. We'll bring you live coverage of the SONA. I'll have my team joining me in studio as we dissect the past SONA, what we can expect in the current one. And when today's is done, we'll share our thoughts with you. So you don't want to be anywhere else for that. But coming up, we're hosting the Old Achimota Association, which has a legacy project and asset fund event this weekend. If you're in Accra, well, this one is for you. But even if you're not, let's support a good cause, yeah? We'll be right back on the AM show to tell you more. Do stay. So yeah, we're talking about the economy and all of that hard stuff. We'll be taking you back there. But for now, let's tone it down a bit. We're going the way of the Accra. Two Accras in the studio with me, and you know what time it is. I have Accra Veronica Mould, Vice President, 1999 year group. There's something we share, but you don't want to know. Don't stay curious. And we also have Accra Ayite Bule, President, 1984 year group. Interestingly, I share things with both of you, but I'll tell you when we are off air. Off air. All right. So they're joining us to talk about their legacy project, among other things that are coming off. And this weekend is going to be special. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you for having us.
Right. Let me start with you. They say ladies first. Just give us a glimpse. 1999 year group, 1984 year group. All of you are headed towards something this weekend. What is it? Tell us about it.
So it's the 97th Founders Day celebration for Achimota School. 99 is celebrating our 25th anniversary of since leaving Achimota School, so our Silver Jubilee, and 84 the Ruby, and we are also celebrating with 74 year group also, who are celebrating their Golden Jubilee. So, so we have a whole host of events this weekend at the school. So it's going to be a really exciting weekend.
I see you're excited already. but let me come to say, are you as excited?
Oh yes, very excited. Very, very excited. Excited for various reasons. Right. Apart from the celebrations that are coming on, we've managed to deliver legacy projects to the school, and initially it was daunting. It was a daunting task at the start, but we're getting there, and we can see light at the end of the tunnel. So we are confident enough to come and sit here and tell you what we are doing for the school. This year's...
So are you delving into the legacy project now, or are you going to tell us of what has already been done?
Oh, we can tell you. We can tell you what the project is about, what the projects are about.
Right.
But what I would like to say is the theme for this year's celebration is nurturing the present and restoring the legacy.
Okay.
So as part of what we are delivering to the school is a refurbished and modernized assembly hall. So the Assembly Hall was built in 1951 and hasn't had any major renovations done to it since then. So the 74 and 84 year groups have come together to renovate and modernize the Assembly Hall.
Okay.
And then the 99 year group are contributing some money towards an asset fund, but I'll leave that for Veronica to talk about.
We'll leave the 99ers to talk about those.
Yeah, she has more information.
Okay, let's delve right into it.
Yeah, so the Achimota School Endowment Trust Fund has been set up. It's been around for a few years, but it's becoming a main focus for the Old Achimota Association. So there is a massive goal that we have. So we're trying to raise $10 million by the school centenary in 2027. So the school's going to turn 100 in just under 3 years. And so, yes, the goal is to raise $10 mayonn for the asset fund. So 99 decided to champion the fund because even though it's been around for a little while, a lot of people don't know about it, even a lot of Akoras are not aware of it. So we are really trying to just champion the fund, get the word out there, because we feel that this is the legacy project to end all legacy projects. So essentially, once we've raised the money, it will be invested, and then the interest from the investments can then fund projects in the school. So it can fund new dormitory blocks or renovations of existing buildings. It can also go towards maintenance of those projects, because a lot of the times we do these legacy projects and then a few years later they need to be done again because the
maintenance and all of that has not been properly
Yes,
done.
Maintenance culture is something that is a struggle for us. So with this asset fund, we are hoping that that is going to turn around the school and that we can bring the school to international standards.
What do you feel would be the benefits of such a project? It's a huge project you're
It is a huge project. I think it's just our main thing is that we want to get all Akoras from all year groups to really get behind the asset fund, because together, channeling our investments together, there are some projects in the school that it's too much for 1 year group to undertake.
True.
Or 2 or even 3. Like, for example, maybe the school needs to be rewired completely. And it's a very expensive or capital intensive task. And yes, it's great that we do these legacy projects every year, but if we can all combine our efforts, we can do so much more for the school, and that's why the asset fund is so important.
You said you wanted her to talk about it, but since what I'm going to ask, you spoke about maintenance. What is going to change with these? Just before I go back to him, since we're staying on the same thing, how will this move?
So we have an impeccable trust, a board of trustees for the asset fund, and they will essentially work with the school board and choose projects and channel the funds in the places that it needs to go. And so in terms of new projects and maintenance, these are things that will be covered by the asset fund.
All right. Coming back to you. So how can people donate? Like you said, you need everyone from every year group to donate. And what are the timelines, basically?
Okay, so for the asset fund, the timelines, we're looking at raising the 10 million by the centenary year. That's in 2027.
Okay.
But for the details of how to contribute towards the asset fund, the champions would give you the
Okay, so back to you then.
Yeah, so we have a Momo number, so you can send us money via Momo. We also have an EcoBank account that you can deposit money into.
Okay.
So the Momo number is 0598598391. And so you can send your contributions. It will say Old Achimota Association projects, I believe. So yes, so you can send your donations there. So as a year group, we are targeting raising $50,000 from ourselves this year.
$50,000
this year.
Good you mentioned.
So we're really trying to get as much of that as we can before this weekend, so that we can hand it over to the school.
Right. To conclude the conversation, unless you have any other bits to add, what is the date? What is the lineup of activities that we can?
Okay, so it's a whole weekend of activities. We start on Wednesday tomorrow. The actual program starts on Friday.
Okay.
But we start tomorrow. The 74-year group are organizing a dental outreach where they are going to the school to talk about dental health and then help improve the dental care and stuff like that around on the campus. Then on Thursday there's going to be what they call it a press conference where the 99-year group will hand over their contribution, the fat check to the asset fund. And then in the evening, there'll be what they call it, a program where the 99-year group feed the students, the whole school, 3,000 plus students.
Yes. Is there any specific reason? I'm being mischievous that you're feeding.
Well, it's a special meal.
So yes, during the Founders Day celebrations, it's tradition to have this special meal, the school feast. Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. So then on Friday is when the party starts. So Friday in the evening, there's a torchlight procession where we light our torchlights from the admin block, the forecourt of the admin block, walk around the school, and then we end up at the clubhouse, the school's clubhouse. And then that's where we have a bonfire party, basically.
Okay.
And then Saturday morning, we have the cadets parade. Afternoon is where the Deba, the climax of the whole program, the Deba takes place, where we have...
when is the fundraiser or the fundraising happening?
So it's happening across all events.
Okay.
So we're going to have a fundraising session on Thursday at the press conference as well. Okay. But yes,
all right.
It's ongoing.
Yeah. Like we said, we are raising the funds till the 2027, so it's ongoing. But for the last part of the program, Sunday with Thanksgiving service, we give thanks to the Lord for what He's done for us and for us being able to contribute back to the school. And then we'll also hand over the completed assembly hall to the school.
How much did that cost?
Close to about 1.2 million Ghana cedis. Because we've refurbished the roof, the parquet floor.
Right.
We've changed the lights. We've rewired the
parquet floors alone are.
Well, that's what it was. That's how it was. That's how it was designed. So we're just restoring it to the old.
So it's former
glory.
Yeah.
The glass doors, all the glass doors around the place. We are putting in audiovisual sound and stuff like that.
It sounds good already. Unfortunately, we have to go.
No,
I'll give you 20 seconds each. Final words, starting with you, Veronica.
So join us this weekend at Achimota School. We are the head of all the hosts, and we welcome you to our school.
Now you're delving into treacherous territory.
I'll go even further. It's the school of whom we boast, and we'd like you to join. We are opening our doors to everybody to come in and celebrate with us, because it's a national icon, and we'd like you guys to come in.
This is on a more of a lighter note. Back then in school, they would see Achimota and go like, Alewa, black and white. Accra Veronica Mould, Vice President, 1999-year group, together with Accra Ayite Bule, President, 1984-year group. That's how we cap off the show this morning. But stay with us. I'm still going to be here. I'll have Winston Amwa, Raymond Aqua. Among others, we're going to be dissecting the SONA from last year and the expectations for this year. And we'll hear from Mr. President and take it from there. You want to be right here with us on this network. Stay. We'll be back.